11:47 p.m. The rain fell in unforgiving sheets, turning the back alley of Westfield Supermarket into a desolate landscape of shadows and despair. Michael Turner's muscles ached as he made his final security round's flashlight, cutting through darkness with mechanical precision, the same way he'd moved through life since Rebecca's death 3 years ago. Pretend, detached, surviving. The beam of light caught something out of place. A flash of white against the grimy darkness. Michael tensed, shifting his weight to the balls of his feet, a habit from his military days. His flashlight illuminated the scene in fragments, expensive heels discarded in a puddle, a silk blouse clinging to trembling shoulders, dark hair plastered against pale skin. A woman huddled against the dumpster, arms wrapped protectively around a small boy who clutched a worn teddy bear against his chest. The sight struck Michael with unexpected force. Something in her desperate posture reminded him of prey animals, beautiful but cornered, dangerous in their fear. "Ma'am," his voice came out softer than intended. "The store's closed. You can't be back here." When she raised her face, Michael's breath caught. Not because of her beauty, though that was undeniable, despite the mascara streaks and split lip, but because of the raw terror in her eyes. He'd seen that look before. In war zones, in hospital rooms where hope went to die. "Please," she whispered, voice fracturing like thin ice. "Don't let them find us." The boy whimpered, pressing his face deeper into her shoulder. His small fingers were white-knuckled around the teddy bear's worn arm. Before Michael could respond, headlights swept across the far end of the alley. The woman's stiffened pupils dilating with primal fear. She curled herself around the child, making herself smaller, invisible. In that moment, something shifted in Michael's chest, the rusty machinery of instinct and protection grinding back to life. Without conscious thought, he stepped between them and the approaching lights, body creating a shield of shadow. "Service entrance," he said, voice low and firm. "Now." The woman rose on unsteady legs, wincing as weight fell on her right ankle. The boy couldn't be older than 7, kept his eyes on the ground, shoulders hunched in a posture no child should know how to assume. Michael unlocked the service door, ushering them into the fluorescent-lit back room of the supermarket. Under the harsh lighting, the woman's injuries became more apparent, the bruise blooming along her jawline, the torn sleeve hastily mended with a safety pin, the haunted vigilance in eyes too alert, too calculating for someone truly helpless. "You're bleeding," Michael said, nodding toward a smear of crimson on her silk sleeve. "It's nothing." Her voice carried the crisp edges of education and money at odds with her disheveled appearance. "Just a scratch." The boy hadn't spoken a word, but his eyes moved constantly, taking in exits, scanning Michael with an assessing gaze that seemed decades older than his small frame. "I'm Michael Turner," he said, speaking to them both, but keeping his posture non-threatening. "Head of security here." "Elise," she replied after a heartbeat of hesitation. "This is Liam." No last names. Michael noted the omission but didn't push. "You're in trouble." Not a question. Elise's laugh was brittle as frost-covered leaves. "That's one way of putting it." Michael weighed his options with the methodical precision that had kept him alive in combat and functioning after Rebecca's death. This woman was clearly running from something dangerous. The smart play was to call the police, step back, return to his empty apartment, and pretend he'd never seen them. Instead, he found himself saying, "My shift ends in 10 minutes. I have a car in the employee lot." Relief and suspicion warred on Elise's face. "Why would you help us?" Michael's gaze shifted to the boy, who clutched his teddy bear like a lifeline. The worn stuffed animal was missing an eye, its fur matted in places from years of love and tears. "Because it's raining," he said simply, "and the kid looks tired." Something in Elise's posture softened fractionally at the mention of the boy. "We don't have anywhere to go," she admitted, the words clearly costing her. Michael nodded toward the staff break room. "Wait there. I'll finish my rounds and clock out." As he turned to leave, tiny fingers caught the edge of his security jacket. He looked down to find Liam staring up at him, eyes enormous in his pale face. "Are you a good guy?" the boy asked, voice barely audible. The question hit Michael with unexpected force, its simplicity cutting through years of moral ambiguity and compromises. "I try to be," he answered honestly. Liam studied him with solemn intensity before giving a single decisive nod. "Okay." Michael felt the weight of that childish trust like a physical burden across his shoulders as he finished his security checks. Every shadow seemed to hold potential threats. Every distant car engine, a harbinger of whatever danger, pursued the strange pair, waiting in the break room. By the time he returned, Elise had cleaned her face and bandaged her arm with supplies from the first aid kit. She stood straighter now, chin lifted in quiet dignity, despite her circumstances. Liam had fallen asleep on the break room couch, teddy bear clutched against his chest, one small hand reaching out as if to ensure Elise couldn't disappear while he slept. "My car's not much," Michael warned as he led them through the now dark store, "but it's reliable." Elise scanned the parking lot with predatory focus before allowing Michael to guide them to his weathered Honda Civic. The boy didn't wake when she gathered him into her arms, his head lolling against her shoulder with the boneless trust of childhood. The drive to Michael's apartment passed in careful silence. In the rearview mirror, he could see Elise maintaining her vigilance, one hand protectively covering Liam's head, the other ready to react to any threat. The teddy bear had fallen to the floor of the car, and Michael noticed a name stitched onto its worn foot, Mr. Whiskers. The quiet domesticity of the name struck him as incongruous against the night's tension. Michael's apartment building rose like a gray monolith against the night sky, not dilapidated, but showing the quiet decay of working-class housing where maintenance was reactive rather than preventive. He parked in his designated spot, killing the engine. "Third floor," he said, turning to face Elise directly for the first time since leaving the store. "My daughter's probably still awake even though she shouldn't be. She's 9 and thinks sleep is optional." Something flickered across Elise's face at the mention of his daughter, surprise perhaps, or wariness. "You have a child." The question held an odd note of vulnerability. Michael nodded. "Livia, it's just the two of us." Elise's arms tightened around the sleeping Liam. "Will she mind visitors?" A ghost of a smile touched Michael's lips. "She'll be ecstatic. She's been campaigning for it, but unexpected guests might distract her from that mission temporarily." The flicker of humor seemed to humanize him in Elise's eyes. Her shoulders lowered a fraction of an inch, the first genuine relaxation he'd seen from her. The apartment building's security door had been broken for months, the intercom a hollow promise of safety. Michael led them up 2 flights of stairs, noting how Elise positioned herself to keep Liam's sleeping form between her body and the wall, protected from potential threats. Apartment 3B's door opened before Michael could reach for his keys. Olivia stood in the doorway, dark hair falling in messy waves around a face that was pure Rebecca, from the determined set of her chin to the intelligence sparking in her eyes. "You're late," she announced, hands on her hips, in a posture that mimicked sternness, but couldn't hide her relief. Her gaze shifted to the strangers behind her, father curiosity replacing accusation. "Who are they?" "Liv, this is Elise and Liam," Michael said, guiding them inside and locking the door behind them. Deadbolt chain and the additional slide lock he'd installed himself. They needed a place to stay tonight. Olivia's eyes widened with childish delight at the unexpected development in her otherwise predictable life. "Like when Princess Leia hid at Obi-Wan's house." Michael saw Elise's questioning look. "Star Wars phase," he explained. "Everything is a galactic metaphor these days." "Does that make you Obi-Wan?" Elise asked, the corner of her mouth lifting slightly. Michael's apartment told the story of his life in the language of objects moving, boxes still unpacked. After 2 years, Olivia's science fair ribbons displayed with military precision, Rebecca's photo on the mantel, not hidden, but not centered, either, as if in the process of being gently set aside. The furniture was functional, rather than decorative spaces, clean but Spartan. A man's home in the aftermath of loss, slowly being reclaimed by a child's presence, colored drawings taped to the refrigerator, a half-completed puzzle on the coffee table, a pink sweater thrown over the back of a chair. Elise took it all in with a single, sweeping glance, cataloging exits and vulnerabilities with the same efficiency Michael had noted earlier. "The couch pulls out," Michael said, moving to the linen closet for spare sheets. "Bathroom's down the hall." "Is he sick?" Olivia asked, peering at Liam's sleeping form with concern. "Just tired, sweetheart." Elise answered, her voice softening when addressing the child. "It's been a long day." "I have pajamas he can borrow," Olivia declared, already racing to her room on a mission of hospitality. Left momentarily alone, Michael and Elise regarded each other with the wariness of 2 predators sharing unexpected territory. "I should explain," she began. Michael raised a hand. "Not tonight. The kid needs rest. You need rest." He nodded toward the butterfly bandage on her forehead. "Tomorrow's soon enough. Relief flashed across Elise's features, genuine gratitude for the reprieve. Thank you. Olivia returned with an armful of clothes, a Wonder Woman t-shirt, and pajama pants with dinosaurs. These are too small for me now, she announced proudly, but they should fit him. As Elise helped the barely awake Liam change into the borrowed clothes, Michael prepared the pull-out couch with mechanical efficiency, tucking hospital corners into the sheets with military precision. Bathroom's all yours, he said when they finished. Towels in the cabinet. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. Elise nodded, the weariness finally showing through her carefully maintained facade. You're being extraordinarily kind to strangers, she observed, wariness still underlying her gratitude. Michael's gaze shifted to Olivia, who was showing Liam her collection of rocks arranged by type on the windowsill. Maybe I've learned that strangers are just family you haven't met yet. The words surprised him as they left his mouth, something Rebecca might have said, not his usual pragmatism. Elise studied his face, searching for deception or hidden motives. Finding none, she finally surrendered to exhaustion, her shoulders dropping. One night, she promised. We'll be gone tomorrow. Michael didn't argue. They both recognized the lie for what it was, a comfortable fiction to preserve her dignity and his deniability. Later, after Olivia had finally succumbed to sleep and the apartment was quiet, Michael sat at his kitchen table cleaning his service handgun, a ritual of maintenance that helped him think. The soft click of metal against metal provided a rhythm for his thoughts. On the pull-out couch, Elise lay awake, one arm protectively encircling Liam. Through the half-open door, their eyes met briefly, two sentinels standing guard against different demons. Michael returned the reassembled gun to its lockbox, securing it with practiced movements. Whatever storm these strangers had brought to his door, he would be ready. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing away their tracks, blurring the boundaries between separate lives now unexpectedly intertwined. Morning arrived with the scent of pancakes and coffee, pulling Elise from fitful sleep. For one disorienting moment, she forgot where she was, reaching instinctively for her phone, for her designer watch, for the trappings of a life that now seemed as distant as another planet. Reality reasserted itself with Liam's warm weight against her side, his breathing deep and even in the sanctuary of genuine sleep, the kind that came only with feeling safe. Elise extracted herself, carefully cataloging their surroundings in the clear morning light. The apartment was smaller than it had seemed last night, a testament to the working-class life she'd once known and later pretended to forget. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, living area flowing into a kitchen where Michael stood at the stove, spatula in hand, his back to her. She took the opportunity to study him properly. Broad shoulders beneath a faded t-shirt, military short hair graying slightly at the temples, movements economical but graceful with the confidence of a man comfortable in his physical capabilities. Not handsome in the conventional sense she'd grown accustomed to in corporate boardrooms, but striking face carved by experience rather than genetics. You snore, Olivia announced, appearing from nowhere with the stealth of childhood, but not loud like Dad, more like a kitten. Elise felt heat rise to her cheeks, embarrassment and emotion she'd trained herself to suppress in the corporate arena emerging unbidden. I'll work on that, she managed. Liv, let our guest wake up before the interrogation, Michael called from the kitchen, not turning around. Olivia grinned, unrepentant. Do you like chocolate chips in your pancakes? Dad makes the best ones. They look like Mickey Mouse if you ask nice. Regular is fine, Elise answered self-consciously, smoothing her rumpled clothes. Is there somewhere I could freshen up? Olivia pointed down the short hallway. Bathroom's there. I put out a new toothbrush for you and one for Liam too. They're from the dentist, but they're still in the package, so they're clean. The matter-of-fact kindness caught Elise off guard. Thank you, she said, voice softening. That was very thoughtful. In the bathroom, clean but utilitarian, single towel hanging precisely centered on the rack, Elise confronted her reflection with clinical detachment. The woman who stared back bore little resemblance to the polished CEO of Westfield Industries. Her hair hung in tangled waves, designer blouse creased beyond salvation, dark circles, shadowing eyes too alert, too haunted for someone with nothing to hide. The split lip had scabbed overnight, and the bruise along her jaw had deepened to a mottled purple. Not the first bruises she'd covered with an expensive concealer, she thought bitterly. Just the most recent. The new toothbrush sat on the counter, still in its package as promised, bright purple, with a cartoon character Elise didn't recognize. A child's toothbrush offered without question to a stranger. The simple kindness made her throat tighten unexpectedly. When she emerged, hair smoothed back with wet hands and face cleaned of yesterday's mascara, Liam was awake and sitting at the kitchen table. The dinosaur pajamas hung loose on his thin frame, but he seemed more at ease than she'd seen him in weeks, answering Olivia's steady stream of questions with single words, eyes darting occasionally to Michael, as if assessing potential threats. "Orange juice or milk?" Michael asked, setting a plate of pancakes in front of her, not Mickey Mouse shaped, but perfectly golden. "Coffee if you have it," Elise replied automatically, then caught herself. "But juice is fine." Michael poured her coffee anyway, black in a chipped mug that read, "World's okayest dad," in faded letters. "Sugar's on the table. No cream, sorry." Black is perfect. The rich aroma hit her senses like a forgotten memory. Not the precisely calibrated espresso from her executive office, but honest coffee, the kind that fueled night shifts and early mornings and lives measured in practical increments. Breakfast unfolded with surprising domesticity. Olivia dominated the conversation, jumping between topics with the lightning connections of childhood, while Michael maintained a quiet presence, watchful but not intrusive. Liam gradually relaxed enough to ask for seconds, his eyes widening when granted without hesitation. It was only when the children moved to the living room, Olivia excitedly showing Liam her collection of fossils, that the adult pretense of normality faded. "You should see a doctor," Michael said quietly, nodding toward her wrist, which she'd been unconsciously favoring. Elise's spine stiffened. "It's fine. It's sprained, possibly fractured." His voice held no judgment, just factual assessment. "And the cut on your arm needs proper cleaning." "Are you a medical expert as well as security?" The sharpness in her tone was reflexive, the corporate armor sliding back into place. Michael remained unruffled. "3 tours in Afghanistan. You learn to recognize injuries." The casual mention of military service explained much about him, the watchful alertness, the economy of movement, the way he positioned himself with sightlines to all entrances. "I'll handle it," Elise said, softening her tone. "Thank you for breakfast. And for last night. We'll be out of your way soon." Michael studied her over the rim of his coffee mug. "Where will you go?" The question hung between them, revealing the hollowness of her assertion. Elise had exactly $237 in cash, a compromised credit card she didn't dare use, and a 7-year-old boy who trusted her to keep him safe. "I have options," she lied. "No, you don't." Michael's bluntness was oddly refreshing after years of corporate doublespeak. "Whatever you're running from, it's serious enough that you're willing to sleep in a stranger's home rather than go to the police." Elise's fingers tightened around the coffee mug, knuckles whitening. "You don't understand." "I understand that the boy's safety comes first," Michael interrupted, voice low enough that the children couldn't hear. "And right now you're in no condition to protect him alone." The truth of his words struck her like a physical blow. She'd been running on adrenaline and desperation for days, each decision narrowing her options until she'd ended up behind a supermarket in the rain. "Why do you care?" The question escaped before she could contain it, raw and vulnerable, in ways Elise Westfield hadn't allowed herself to be in years. Michael's gaze shifted to the children, to Olivia's animated explanation of her rock collection, to Liam's cautious smile as he held a piece of petrified wood. "Because someone helped me once," he said simply, "when I needed it most." Before Elise could respond, Olivia's voice rang out from the living room. "Dad, Liam's never seen The Mandalorian. Can we watch it?" "Please." The domestic interruption broke the tension. Michael's expression softened as he called back, "1 episode, then homework." Turning back to Elise, he continued with quiet intensity. "You don't have to tell me everything, but I need to know if you're bringing danger to my daughter's door." The question was fair, more than fair. Elise owed him the truth, or at least enough of it to make an informed decision. "I'm the CEO of Westfield Industries," she began, voice steady despite the risk of the disclosure. "Or I was until 3 days ago." If Michael was impressed by her position, he didn't show it. "The pharmaceutical company. Biotechnology primarily," Elise corrected automatically. "We develop medical technologies for various applications." "And someone at your company wants you gone." Elise's laugh held no humor. "The entire board of directors, led by my CFO, James Harrington. They've been moving key divisions toward military applications, weapons development, disguised as medical research. When I discovered their plans and threatened to expose them, She trailed off unconsciously, touching the bruise on her jaw. Michael's expression darkened. They attacked you. Harrington's security team, she confirmed. They were going to detain me until they could address my mental health concerns. Corporate speak for discrediting me and taking control. And the boy, Michael's gaze shifted to Liam, who was carefully examining a geode Olivia had split open, revealing purple crystals inside. Elise hesitated, protective instinct warring with the need for trust. He's my nephew, she admitted finally. My sister's son. She's gone. I'm all he has. Something shifted in Michael's expression, a flash of recognition quickly concealed. How did you escape? My assistant warned me. She overheard their plans and created a diversion so I could get to Liam before they realized he could be used against me. Elise's voice caught. She risked everything. I don't even know if she's safe. Michael absorbed this information with the focus of a tactician assessing battlefield intelligence. So you have a multi-billion-dollar company hunting you with resources to track phones, credit cards, vehicles. Yes. And they're willing to use physical force. Yes. And they know about the boy. Elise's breath hitched. They know he exists. They don't know I have him. At least I don't think they do. Michael felt silent thoughts moving behind his controlled expression. Finally, he said, you need more than one night on my couch. Relief flooded Elise's system so intensely she felt lightheaded. I can pay you, she offered reflexively, the corporate mindset asserting itself, everything as transaction. I don't want your money. Michael's rejection was firm, but not unkind. I want your honesty. No more partial truths. If I'm putting my daughter at risk by helping you, I need to know exactly what we're facing. The word we registered like a physical touch, unexpected solidarity from a virtual stranger. Elise found herself nodding, the tight control she'd maintained for days finally beginning to crack. There's something else, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Something I haven't told you. Michael waited, giving her space to continue. I know you, Elise admitted, unable to meet his eyes. Or rather, I knew your wife, Rebecca Turner, was my sister. The coffee mug in Michael's hand crashed to the floor, shattering into jagged fragments. In the sudden silence, Elise could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Michael's face had gone completely blank, the practiced stillness of a man absorbing a devastating blow. Rebecca had no siblings, he said finally, voice dangerously quiet. She was an only child. She believed that, Elise confirmed, forcing herself to meet his gaze. After our parents died, she was 18, I was 6. She couldn't care for me while putting herself through nursing school. I was adopted by the Westfields' family friends with resources she didn't have. They made it a closed adoption at my new father's insistence, cut all ties. Michael's breathing had become shallow, his military composure fracturing around the edges. She searched for years, he said, each word precise and sharp as broken glass. Hired investigators, DNA registries. She never stopped looking for you. The confirmation hit Elise like a physical blow. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know she was looking. The Westfields told me she didn't want contact. And you believed them. The accusation hung in the air between them. I was a child, Elise defended, heat rising to her cheeks. By the time I was old enough to question it, to search on my own, I found her name, found out she was married, seemed happy. I convinced myself it would be selfish to disrupt her life. Michael's laugh was a broken, jagged thing. Selfish, he repeated. Do you know what she would have given to know you were alive and well, to meet you, to know she had family left in this world? The raw pain in his voice made Elise flinch. Where is she now, she asked, though something in his expression had already given her the answer. Can I see her? Tell you, Rebecca died 3 years ago. Ovarian cancer. Each word fell like a stone. The same disease that took your mother. The room seemed to tilt sideways, the floor unsteady beneath Elise's feet. Cancer. Genetic. A disease she'd been screened for religiously because of her family history, a precaution Rebecca might never have known to take. I didn't, she began, but there were no words adequate to fill the chasm between them. Michael's gaze held hers, grief and anger warring for dominance. And now you bring her son to my door. I had nowhere else to go. Elise whispered the truth of those words, settling into her bones. Before Michael could respond, the apartment door burst open, the chain snapping with a metallic shriek, the deadbolt splintering wood as it tore free. Two men in tactical gear stormed into the apartment, weapons raised. Behind them, a third figure entered, with casual confidence, James Harrington, in his bespoke suit expression cold as midwinter. Elise, he said, voice carrying the polished refinement of old money and older cruelty. You've led us on quite a chase. His gaze moved dismissively over Michael, over the modest apartment, before settling on the children frozen in terror by the television. And you've brought your sister's brat, he continued, smile sharpening. How convenient. Two problems solved at once. Michael moved with explosive speed, placing himself between the intruders and the children. His hand reached for a weapon that wasn't there, the gun safely locked away, useless. Federal agents, Harrington lied smoothly. This woman is wanted for corporate espionage and kidnapping. They're not federal anything, Elise countered, moving to stand beside Michael, creating a human barrier before the children. They're private security hired by my company's CFO, who's been selling military technology to foreign entities. The armed men advanced, untroubled by the exposure of their false identities. One trained his weapon on Michael, the other on Elise. We can do this quietly, Harrington offered, straightening his Italian silk tie. Or we can make it messy. Your choice, Elise. Behind them, Olivia had pulled Liam against her, the children huddled together like frightened animals. The boy's face was buried against her shoulder, but Olivia's eyes were wide open, taking in everything with the horrified comprehension of a child seeing adult violence for the first time. Dad, her voice trembled on that single syllable. Something shifted in Michael's posture, a subtle coiling of muscles, a predator preparing to strike despite overwhelming odds. You have exactly 3 seconds to get out of my home, he said, voice deadly quiet. Harrington laughed. Or what, Mr. Turner, you'll call the police. By the time they arrive, we'll be gone, as will Elise and the boy. One, Michael counted, seemingly oblivious to the weapons trained on him. This is becoming tedious, Harrington sighed. Take them. 2. Michael's hand moved to the kitchen counter, fingers closing around a dish towel. The armed men advanced. 3. In one fluid motion, Michael snapped the dish towel at the nearest gunman's eyes, simultaneously driving his other fist into the man's throat. The weapon discharged with a deafening cracked bullet, embedding in the ceiling as its owner crumpled. The second gunman swung in toward Michael, but Elise was already moving, years of corporate combat translated to physical action as she hurled her coffee mug at his face. Hot liquid splashed into his eyes, his shot going wild as he cursed. Take the kids! Michael shouted, grappling with the temporarily blinded gunman. Elise grabbed Olivia's hand, reaching for Liam with her other arm. Fire escape, she commanded, maternal instinct overriding corporate calculation. Now, Harrington moved to intercept them, his manicured hand reaching for Liam. You're not going anywhere. Something ancient and primal rose in Elise's chest, the female animal protecting young. She released Olivia just long enough to drive her knee upward with all the force she could muster. Harrington doubled over with a strangled gasp, designer suit, no protection against the most basic of attacks. Go, Elise urged, shepherding the children toward the bedroom window that opened onto the fire escape. Behind them, Michael had disarmed one gunman, but was struggling with the other, outmatched in weaponry, if not in skill or determination. Blood streaked his temple where a blow had landed. Olivia reached the window first, fingers fumbling with the lock. It's stuck, Elise shouldered her aside, attacking the corroded lock with desperate strength. Metal grown decades of paint cracking as the window finally slid upward. Cold morning air rushed into the apartment, carrying the sounds of traffic 3 stories below. The fire escape's rusted frame shuddered as Olivia climbed out, reaching back to help Liam. Elise! Michael's shout carried warning. She turned in time to see Harrington recovering, reaching inside his jacket. The polished grip of a handgun gleamed as he drew it, aiming not at her, but at the children now exposed on the fire escape. Time contracted to a single crystalline moment of clarity. Elise launched herself at Harrington with reckless abandon, no strategy beyond putting her body between the gun and the children. They collided with bone-jarring force, Elise's momentum carrying them both to the floor. The gun discharged inches from her ear, the sound obliterating all others in a high-pitched whine of auditory trauma. Harrington's face contorted with rage beneath her, his free hand closing around her throat with crushing pressure. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision as oxygen became precious scarce. Her fingers scrabbled for purchase, for weakness, for any advantage in this desperate struggle. They found the family photo that had fallen in the melee, Rebecca's face smiling from behind shattered glass. Elise's fingers closed around the largest shard, driving it down with all her remaining strength. Harrington's grip loosened with a howl of pain, blood blooming across his pristine white shirt, where the glass had found its mark in his shoulder. Elise rolled away, lungs burning, as she dragged precious air into her oxygen-starved body. The apartment had become a battlefield. Furniture overturned, one gunman unconscious, the other locked in mortal struggle with Michael near the splintered front door. "Run!" Michael shouted, his face a mask of blood and determination, as he maintained his chokehold on the remaining attacker. Elise staggered to her feet, lurching toward the window where the children waited, terrified but alive. Behind her, Harrington rose, wounded but far from defeated. "You've made a catastrophic mistake, Elise," he snarled, retrieving his dropped weapon. "The board will crucify you for this." "The board will never know," came a new voice from the doorway, calm, authoritative, unexpected. A woman stood in the shattered entrance, service weapon drawn with professional confidence. Behind her, uniformed police officers moved with tactical precision, securing the scene. "FBI Special Agent Maya Reynolds," she announced, badge gleaming at her belt. "James Harrington, you're under arrest for assault, breaking and entering, and corporate espionage. We've been building a case against you for months." Harrington's face drained of color, aristocratic features contorting with disbelief. "This is absurd. I'm the CFO of Westfield Industries. Do you have any idea who I am? A man who's about to spend a very long time in federal prison," Agent Reynolds replied without emotion. "Your overseas accounts have been frozen and your co-conspirators are being taken into custody as we speak." As police officers secured Harrington and his men, Michael finally released his opponent, staggering back against the wall, chest heaving with exertion. "Michael." Elise crossed to him, supporting his weight as his knees threatened to buckle. "Are you hurt?" "Alive," he managed, eyes already searching for Olivia. Finding her safe on the fire escape, relief washed over his bloodied features. "The kids." "Safe," Elise confirmed, her own voice rough from Harrington's strangling grip. Agent Reynolds approached them, holstering her weapon. "Ms. Westfield, we've been monitoring Harrington's operation for almost a year. Your discovery of their weapons program accelerated our timeline." "How did you find us?" Michael asked, pressing a dish towel to his bleeding temple. "Anonymous tip," Reynolds replied, glancing between them with curious assessment. "Someone called in a domestic disturbance at this address, specifically mentioned armed intruders threatening a child." Michael and Elise exchanged baffled looks. "Regardless, we need your formal statements," Reynolds continued. "Both of you are material witnesses in what's become a national security case." Outside on the fire escape, Olivia had wrapped protective arms around Liam, who clutched his teddy bear with white-knuckled intensity. Their small faces peered through the window, witnesses to violence no child should endure. "The children first," Elise insisted, maternal authority entering her voice. "They need medical attention and psychological support before any questioning." Reynolds studied her for a moment before nodding. "Of course, we have specialists for minors." As paramedics arrived and the apartment transformed into a crime scene, Michael and Elise found themselves side by side on the building steps, watching as Olivia and Liam were gently examined in the back of an ambulance. "She would have loved knowing you found your way back to her son," Michael said quietly, breaking the weighted silence between them. Elise turned to him, searching his battered face for signs of forgiveness or its absence. "I never knew she was looking for me. I swear it." "I believe you." The admission seemed to cost him something vital. "Rebecca kept all her search records. Letters she wrote to you but couldn't send because she had no address. Birthday cards for every year you were apart." Tears burned behind Elise's eyes, grief for a sister she'd never truly known, for years lost to lies and misunderstanding. "I should have tried harder to find her." Michael's gaze remained on the children, on Olivia's protective posture toward the younger boy, on Liam's absolute trust in her guardianship. "You're here now," he said finally, "with her son. Maybe that's what matters." "What happens now?" Elise asked, the question encompassing more than the immediate aftermath of violence. Michael's expression hardened as he watched police officers escorting Harrington toward a waiting vehicle. Now we make sure they can never threaten your nephew again. Our nephew, Elise corrected softly. Michael turned to her, then really looking at her for the first time, seeing not the polished CEO or the desperate woman from the alley, but something more complex, the last living connection to the woman he'd loved, the aunt of his nephew, a person suddenly irrevocably part of his fractured family. Our nephew, he agreed, the word forming a bridge across the chasm between them. In the ambulance, Liam had fallen asleep against Olivia's shoulder, exhaustion, claiming him now that immediate danger had passed. The teddy bear Mr. Whiskers remained clutched in his small hand, worn fur damp with tears, glass-bead eyes bearing witness to more trauma than any child or toy should endure. Michael and Elise watched in shared silence as the paramedics worked as Agent Reynolds coordinated her team as the morning sun climbed higher in a sky indifferent to the human drama unfolding beneath it. Neither spoke the truth. They both recognized that Harrington's arrest was only the beginning, that powerful forces remained in motion, that the danger had been interrupted, but not eliminated. For now, it was enough that the children were safe, that they had found each other, that Rebecca's fractured family had a chance, however slim, of becoming whole again. The teddy bear watched with its single remaining eye as new bonds formed in the aftermath of violence. Family created not from perfect circumstances, but from shared adversity and the fierce primal instinct to protect what remained. But in the shadows across the street, a black sedan idled its tinted windows, concealing watchful eyes. The board of directors had resources beyond Harrington, contingency plans beyond his ambitions, and they had just begun to understand the threat that Elise Westfield and her newfound family represented to their carefully constructed empire of secrets. The real battle was just beginning. The safe house smelled of dust and disuse, a 3-bedroom ranch on the outskirts of the city, government-issue furniture still wrapped in protective plastic. Agent Reynolds had called it secure accommodation. Michael recognized it for what it was, a holding pen for witnesses the FBI wasn't quite ready to release into the wild. 3 days had passed since the attack on his apartment. 3 days of statements and photographs and medical examinations. 3 days of watching Liam flinch at sudden movements, of seeing Olivia's childhood innocence fractured along fault lines of violence witnessed too young. Michael stood at the kitchen window, coffee cooling in his hands, as he scanned the perimeter for the 14th time since dawn. The habits of warfare died hard, especially when reawakened by fresh combat. "You should sleep," Elise said from the doorway, her borrowed FBI sweatshirt hanging loose on her frame. Without makeup or designer clothes, she looked younger, more vulnerable, and more like Rebecca. The resemblance haunted him in unexpected moments. "I'm fine," he replied automatically, gaze never leaving the tree line beyond the chain-link fence. Elise crossed to stand beside him, close enough that he could smell the generic shampoo they'd all been provided, so different from whatever expensive products she'd used in her corporate life. "The children are still asleep," she said, following his gaze to the security perimeter. Liam had nightmares again. Michael nodded. The boy's terrified whimpers had carried through the thin walls around 3 a.m., followed by Elise's gentle murmurings. "Olivia, too," he admitted. "She keeps asking when we can go home." A question he couldn't answer. His apartment was a crime scene, and beyond that, no longer secure. The life they'd built after Rebecca's death, modest but stable, had been shattered in a single morning of violence. "I'm sorry," Elise said, the words inadequate but sincere. "I never meant to bring this to your door. You didn't know where else to go." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but understanding. They stood in silence, two people bound by circumstance and blood ties neither had chosen, watching as morning light gradually illuminated the safe house's sterile yard. "Agent Reynolds will be here at 10, Michael said finally. "She's bringing the case files on Westfield Industries." Elise's fingers tightened around her coffee mug. "And news about the board members, I hope. Harrington wasn't acting alone." "No," Michael agreed grimly. "Men like that never do." The sound of small feet padding across linoleum interrupted their vigil. Liam appeared in the doorway, Mr. Whiskers dangling from one hand, Olivia's dinosaur pajamas hanging loose on his thin frame. "Is there breakfast?" he asked, voice small but steady, a child learning to navigate a world suddenly unreliable. Michael crossed to the refrigerator, movements deliberately casual, non-threatening. "Eggs and toast work for you, buddy." Liam nodded, climbing onto a kitchen chair, still too tall for his 7-year-old frame. Elise moved to help him, but the boy stiffened at her approach. The reaction was subtle but unmistakable, a new wariness that hadn't been there before the attack. Pain flashed across Elise's features before she concealed it behind a careful smile. I'll see if Olivia's awake, she said, retreating from the kitchen. Michael watched her go, noting the careful way she held herself, injuries from the fight still healing, but also the deeper wound of Liam's unconscious rejection. Children were perceptive. They understood more than adults gave them credit for. Somehow Liam had connected Elise to the danger that had exploded into their lives. Is she really my aunt? Liam asked once Elise was out of earshot, surprising Michael with his directness. Michael cracked eggs into a bowl, buying time to consider his response. Yes, he said finally, she's your mom's sister. But Mom never talked about her. The statement held childish accusation. They were separated when they were young, Michael explained, whisking the eggs with more force than necessary. Sometimes families get broken apart even when people love each other. Liam's small fingers traced patterns on the tabletop, following the wood grain. Is it my fault the bad men came? The question hit Michael with physical force, the innocent inquiry, revealing the terrible logic of childhood, the assumption of guilt that children so often took upon themselves. No. Michael set down the whisk, crossing to kneel beside Liam's chair, meeting the boy's eyes directly. None of this is your fault. Not one bit. The bad men came because they're greedy and afraid of your aunt stopping their plans. You did nothing wrong. Liam studied Michael's face with the solemn intensity unique to children, searching for truth, for reassurance, for solid ground in a world suddenly unstable. Promise, he asked finally. I promise, Michael answered, the vow cementing something between them, an unspoken bond of protection and trust. Liam nodded once, decision made with childish finality. Can I have cheese in my eggs? The mundane request after such weighty matters nearly made Michael smile. Absolutely. By the time Agent Reynolds arrived, the safe house had settled into uneasy domesticity. Olivia had claimed the coffee table for an impromptu art studio, colored pencils spread across government forms, repurposed as drawing paper. Liam sat beside her, Mr. Whiskers propped between them as an attentive audience for their creative efforts. Reynolds entered with the confident efficiency that seemed her permanent state, dark suit, impeccable service weapon, visible at her hip, more a statement than necessity. Mr. Turner, Ms. Westfield, she greeted them, setting a laptop and thick folder on the kitchen counter. How are the children adjusting? As well as can be expected, Elise answered, arms crossed protectively over her chest. What news from Westfield Industries? Reynolds' expression remained professionally neutral. The board of directors is claiming complete ignorance of Harrington's activities. They've issued a statement expressing shock and promising full cooperation with authorities. Convenient, Michael observed. Very, Reynolds agreed, something like grim humor flickering across her features, especially considering what we found in the company servers. She opened the laptop, turning it to face them. On screen, a complex organizational chart displayed Westfield Industries' structure, certain names highlighted in accusatory red. Harrington wasn't acting alone, Reynolds continued. We've identified at least 4 board members directly involved in the weapons program. Unfortunately, 2 of them have already fled the country. Elise leaned forward, studying the names with narrowed eyes. Nathaniel Kane and Victor Zhao, she murmured. They both pushed hard for the military contracts last quarter. They're currently in non-extradition countries, Reynolds confirmed, but we've frozen their U.S. assets and flagged their passports. They won't be coming back. And the weapons program itself? Michael asked, military background, sharpening his focus on the practical threat. Reynolds hesitated, glancing toward the children before lowering her voice. That's where things get complicated. The technology Westfield was developing wasn't traditional weaponry. It was biological, specifically targeted pathogens designed to affect particular genetic markers. The implications hung heavy in the air between them. Genetic weapons, biological warfare with precision targeting. That's illegal under multiple international treaties. Elise said, face pale with the realization of what had been happening within her company. Which is why they kept it hidden from you, Reynolds agreed. According to the files we've recovered, they began the program 3 years ago, operating through shell companies and offshore facilities. 3 years, the timing struck Michael with cold clarity. When did you say this started? Initial funding appears to have begun in late 2021, Reynolds replied, scanning her notes. When Rebecca died, Michael said flatly. Elise's head snapped up, understanding dawning in her eyes. You think there's a connection? Rebecca was a research nurse at Memorial Hospital. Michael explained the pieces aligning with terrible logic. She worked in the oncology department, but she was also involved in a genetic study cancer predisposition in families. Reynolds was already typing accessing additional files. Westfield Industries had a partnership with Memorial for Genetic Research, she confirmed reading from the screen. Patient data would have been valuable for their targeting work. Rebecca mentioned concerns about patient confidentiality before she got sick. Michael said memory sharpening with renewed focus. She thought some data was being accessed without proper authorization. You think they, Elise couldn't finish the question, the possibility too horrific to articulate. I think your sister may have stumbled onto something they couldn't afford to have exposed. Reynolds stated professional detachment, unable to completely mask the gravity of the implication. Michael's hands had clenched into fists without conscious thought, knuckles white with suppressed rage. She died of ovarian cancer, the same disease that took her mother. There was nothing suspicious about it. Or it was the perfect cover, Elise whispered, face ashen. Genetic predisposition means no one would question it. The possibility sat between them like a live grenade, unprovable, yet impossible to dismiss entirely. Michael felt sick, the breakfast he'd prepared for Liam turning to acid in his stomach. We can't jump to conclusions, Reynolds cautioned, ever the professional investigator. But we will look into Rebecca Turner's medical records and treatment history as part of our broader investigation. You mean we might never know for certain? Michael translated, bitterness edging his voice. Reynolds didn't sugarcoat her response. That's a possibility. Biological agents designed to accelerate existing genetic conditions would be nearly impossible to detect, especially years after the fact. Elise had gone completely still. The corporate executive vanished beneath raw human grief. They killed my sister, she said, each word precise and sharp as broken glass. And I handed them the company that let them do it. And you didn't know, Michael said, automatically surprising himself with the impulse to comfort her. I should have, Elise countered, self-recrimination hardening her features. It's my company, my responsibility. Right now, our priority is keeping you both alive to testify, Reynolds interjected pragmatically. The remaining board members have significant resources and powerful connections. Until we've secured indictments against everyone involved, you and the children remain at risk. The reminder of present danger forced Michael back to tactical thinking. What's the plan? Witness protection eventually, Reynolds said, but first we need Elise's testimony and cooperation to unravel the full extent of the conspiracy. I'll give you whatever you need, Elise said immediately. Financial records, research, data, everything I can access. Reynolds nodded, pleased with the cooperation. There's something else you should know, she added, retrieving a manila envelope from her briefcase. We've been investigating Westfield Industries for months, but we weren't the only ones building a case. She withdrew several photographs, spreading them across the counter. They showed a woman in her 30s with cropped dark hair caught in surveillance images entering various buildings. Your assistant, Jessica Chen, Reynolds explained. She wasn't just working for you, Ms. Westfield. She was working with us. Elise stared at the photos, recognition and betrayal warring across her features. Jessica was an informant, an undercover agent, Reynolds corrected. She was placed in your company 18 months ago when we received initial intelligence about the weapons program. The revelations seemed to physically impact Elise, her body swaying slightly before she steadied herself against the counter. She saved me, she said softly. When Harrington's men came, she created a diversion so I could escape. She did her job, Reynolds confirmed. Agent Chen is currently debriefing at our field office. She sends her regards and says, I quote, "Tell her I'm sorry about the coffee." The cryptic message prompted a ghost of a smile from Elise. Inside joke, she explained to Michael's questioning look. I complained daily about how she made terrible coffee. She did it deliberately, Reynolds said with professional amusement. Establishing herself as slightly incompetent made people underestimate her. The conversation paused as Olivia approached, holding up a drawing for inspection. Dad, look, it's our new house. Michael accepted the paper, studying the childish rendering with appropriate solemnity. A large house with 4 stick figures standing before it, too tall, too small. A family portrait of people who hadn't been a family a week ago. It's beautiful, Liv, he said, throat unexpectedly tight. Is that a swimming pool? Uh-huh. And a treehouse. She pointed to various features with proprietary pride. Liam's never had a treehouse, so I told him we'd build one. Michael glanced toward the boy who watched their interaction with cautious hope. That's a great idea. When can we go home? Olivia asked the innocent question, landing with the weight of adult complications. Reynolds intervened smoothly. You'll need to stay here a little longer, Olivia, just until we finish our work. But I brought some books and games for you and Liam. She produced a bag that had gone unnoticed, offering it like a peace treaty. Olivia accepted the distraction with the resilience of childhood returning to Liam with their newfound treasures. The adults watched her go, the weight of responsibility settling more heavily in her absence. How long? Michael asked once the children were out of earshot. A few weeks at minimum, Reynolds replied honestly. We're moving as quickly as we can, but corporate conspiracy cases are complex, and there's the matter of permanent relocation to consider. The reality of witness protection, new identities, new location, severed connections to their past lives hung unspoken between them. I need to make a call, Elise said abruptly, standing with sudden purpose. There's someone at Westfield who might have additional information. Someone I trust. Reynolds hesitated. All communications need to be secured and monitored. Fine, Elise agreed without argument, but this person may be at risk if they were aware of my suspicions. I need to warn them. As Reynolds set up a secure line, Michael found himself studying Elise with renewed assessment. The corporate polish had been stripped away by circumstance, revealing something harder, more resilient, beneath a woman shaped by the same loss that had shaped him just from the opposite side of absence. The secure call connected Elise's posture, shifting subtly as she prepared to navigate this communication with calculated precision. Dr. Patel, it's Elise Westfield. She paused, listening. Yes, I'm safe. I can't say where. Listen carefully. I don't have much time. The Phase 3 trials for Project Helix, I need to know if you've secured the original research data. Michael couldn't hear the response, but Elise's expression tightened. I understand. Yes, that would be best. And Marcus, be careful. Don't trust anyone on the board. Another pause. Thank you for everything. When she hung up, Elise turned to find both Reynolds and Michael watching her with guarded expectation. Dr. Marcus Patel, my head of research and development, she explained. He's been suspicious of the military contracts for months. He's made copies of all the research data and secured it off-site. Will he cooperate with our investigation? Reynolds asked. Yes, Elise confirmed. He's gathering everything now, but he also confirmed something I've been afraid of. She hesitated, glancing toward the children before continuing in a lower voice. This weapons program was specifically targeting genetic markers common in certain ethnic populations. It wasn't just theoretical research, they had working prototypes. The implication landed like a physical blow. Genetic weapons designed to target specific ethnicities, a nightmare scenario that violated every international law and ethical boundary. That's genocide, Michael said flatly. That's profit, Elise corrected, bitterness sharpening her tone. Military contracts worth billions to whoever could deliver a weapon that kills only the right people. Reynolds was already on her phone relaying this new information to her superiors with clipped efficiency. The investigation had just escalated from corporate fraud to potential crimes against humanity. Later that evening, after Reynolds had departed with promises of additional security and resources, Michael found Elise sitting alone on the back porch. The safe house's small yard was bathed in security lighting, removing any natural beauty in favor of tactical visibility. He handed her a mug of tea without comment, settling into the adjacent chair. The night air carried the scent of approaching rain, heavy with unspoken possibilities. The children are asleep, he said finally. Liam wanted the door open, afraid of being trapped if something happens. Elise nodded, understanding the hypervigilance that followed trauma. Smart kid. He's a lot like her, Michael said, the comparison slipping out unbidden. Rebecca, the way he analyzes everything, plans 3 steps ahead. Elise's hands tightened around her mug. I wish I'd known her. As an adult, I mean. The sister I remember was 18, barely more than a child herself. She would have liked the woman you became. Michael offered, surprising himself with the assessment. She valued integrity, courage. You've shown both. The unexpected praise seemed to unsettle Elise more than criticism would have. I built a multi-billion-dollar company while remaining willfully blind to what was happening within it, she countered. That's not integrity, it's negligence. You can't watch everything. I should have watched this. Her voice hardened with self-recrimination. People may have died because I was too focused on quarterly reports and market expansion to see what was happening under my nose. Michael recognized the pattern grief transmuting to guilt, searching for control in hindsight for the moment where different choices might have created different outcomes. He'd walked the same circular path after Rebecca's death, examining every decision, every missed symptom, every alternative treatment not pursued. When Rebecca was diagnosed, I researched everything, he said, gaze fixed on the security perimeter rather than Elise's face. Every treatment option, every clinical trial, every experimental approach. I was convinced there was an answer somewhere that the doctors had missed. Elise remained silent, allowing him space to continue. I became obsessed with finding that one thing that would save her, as if perfect knowledge could change reality. The admission cost him something to voice. In the end, none of it mattered. The cancer had its own agenda. You did everything you could, Elise offered quietly. Michael turned to her, then expression stark in the harsh security lighting. So did you. The moment you discovered what was happening in your company, you acted. You protected Liam. You sought the truth even at tremendous personal cost. The absolution coming from the man who had perhaps lost the most to her family's fractured connections landed with unexpected weight. Elise's carefully maintained composure cracked a single tear tracking down her cheek before she could suppress it. I keep thinking about what she must have gone through, she whispered, searching for me all those years, never knowing if I was alive or dead or happy or suffering. She never gave up hope, Michael said, offering the one truth that might provide comfort. Every birthday, every Christmas, she'd say, maybe this year we'll find her. The revelation broke something open in Elise's grief too long contained, finally finding release. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs, face turned away from Michael in private communion with her loss. He allowed her the dignity of unobserved grief, his gaze returning to the perimeter, standing guard as she mourned the sister she'd lost twice, once to separation and once to death. When she finally spoke again, her voice carried the raw honesty of emotional exhaustion. I don't know how to be an aunt or part of a family. The Westfields weren't exactly warm and nurturing. You're doing fine, Michael assured her. Liam responds to you. He's afraid of me, Elise countered. He associates me with the danger. He's processing trauma. Give him time. Their conversation paused as the security floodlights caught movement at the perimeter, a raccoon investigating the fence line before ambling away into the darkness. Both adults tracked the animal with predatory focus until certain it posed no threat. What will you do, Elise asked finally. After all this, witness protection, new identities. You and Olivia had a life before I crashed into it. The question caught Michael unprepared, forcing him to confront the uncertain future that loomed beyond their current crisis. Keep her safe, he said finally. Everything else is negotiable. She's extraordinary, Elise offered. Smart, resilient. You've done an amazing job raising her alone. Not always alone, Michael corrected. Rebecca's parents help when they can. They're in Arizona now, retired. They'll be devastated to lose contact with Olivia. The human cost of witness protection, the severed connections, the abandoned relationships, settled between them like a physical presence. I'm sorry, Elise said, the words inadequate but sincere. I've cost you everything. Not everything, Michael countered with unexpected gentleness. Olivia is safe. I'm alive. We found Rebecca's son. That's not nothing. The sentiment, simply stated but profound, shifted something in the air between them, an acknowledgement of shared purpose beyond mere survival. Before Elise could respond, her secure phone vibrated with an incoming call. She answered with cautious precision, listening more than speaking. When? She asked finally. Are you certain? Yes, I understand. We'll be ready. She ended the call, turning to Michael with renewed tension radiating from her posture. That was Reynolds. Dr. Patel is dead. Car accident on his way to the FBI field office. Accident. Michael repeated the word, heavy with skepticism. His brake lines were cut. Elise confirmed his suspicion. And his laptop with the research data is missing. The implications settled like ice in Michael's veins. They're eliminating witnesses and evidence. Reynolds is moving us tomorrow. Elise continued, professional efficiency masking the fear beneath. New safe house, higher security. She's concerned the current location may be compromised. Michael was already moving military training, activating contingency planning. Pack the children's things. Essential items only. I'll secure the perimeter. Michael, Elise's voice stopped him at the door. The research data Patel was bringing it included genetic profiles of test subjects. She hesitated the next words clearly, causing her physical pain to voice, including Liam's. The revelation struck with physical force. What Harrington had been collecting genetic samples from employees' family members through the company wellness program, supposedly for preventive health screening. Bitterness edged her words. They needed diverse genetic profiles to test their targeting capabilities. Does Liam have the same genetic markers as Rebecca? Michael asked, the terrible possibility taking shape. I don't know, Elise admitted, but if he does, the unfinished sentence hung between them the possibility that Liam might carry the same vulnerability that may have been weaponized against his mother. We need to move, now. Michael's decision crystallized with cold clarity. If they have the research data and they know Liam's connection to it, they won't wait until morning to act. Elise nodded, already moving toward the children's room. What about Reynolds? We call her once we're clear, Michael decided, but we don't wait for official channels, not with the children's lives at stake. The plan formed with tactical precision as they moved through the safe house, gathering only what they couldn't leave behind. Michael retrieved the handgun Reynolds had provided for emergency use, checking it with practiced efficiency before securing it in a concealed holster. Waking the children required delicate handling, explaining enough to ensure cooperation without triggering panic. Olivia responded with the solemn understanding of a child who had already weathered one parent's death and now recognized the fragility of safety. Liam simply clutched Mr. Whiskers tighter, eyes wide, but questions contained. Within 20 minutes they were ready, 2 adults and 2 children prepared to disappear into the night, carrying only backpacks and the invisible weight of secrets powerful enough to kill. As Michael conducted a final security sweep, Elise knelt before Liam, adjusting his jacket with gentle hands. We're going on a little trip, she explained, voice steady despite the circumstances. Somewhere safe where the bad men can't find us. Like hide and seek, Liam asked, child's mind grasping for familiar frameworks. Exactly like that, Elise confirmed. And you and Olivia are going to be very good at hiding. The most important thing is to stay quiet and do exactly what Michael and I tell you. Can you do that? Liam nodded, solemn as only a 7-year-old confronting adult gravity could be. Is Mr. Whiskers coming too? Of course, Elise assured him. We wouldn't leave him behind. The simple exchange, domestic amid crisis, caught Michael unexpectedly. He found himself watching Elise with new awareness, seeing not the corporate executive or Rebecca's lost sister, but a woman finding strength in protecting the vulnerable. The moment shattered as security floodlights outside suddenly extinguished, plunging the safe house perimeter into darkness. They're here, Michael said quietly, no alarm in his voice, just deadly certainty. Out the back. Now. Elise gathered Liam into her arms while Michael lifted Olivia, both adults moving with synchronized purpose toward the rear exit. No words were needed. Survival had forged a temporary but unbreakable alliance. The night air hit them with shocking coldness as they slipped from the house into the unlit yard. Michael led them toward the back fence, where he'd earlier identified a maintenance gate locked, but navigable with the key he'd located during his security assessment. Behind them, the safe house remained eerily quiet. No dramatic breach, no shouted commands, just the silent, methodical approach of professional killers who preferred efficiency to spectacle. The maintenance gate yielded to the key hinges, protesting slightly, as Michael eased it open, just wide enough for them to slip through single file. Beyond lay a narrow service road, and beyond that, dense woods offering both concealment and navigational challenges. 2 miles north through the forest, Michael whispered. There's a highway with a rest stop. We can call Reynolds from there. Elise nodded, adjusting her grip on Liam, who had gone completely silent, trauma response, shutting down all but essential functions. They had taken 3 steps into the woods when the first shot rang out, not aimed at them, but fired as warning or signal. The sound galvanized their movement, caution giving way to desperate speed as they plunged deeper into the darkness. Branches clawed at their clothing roots, threatened to trip them with every step. Michael led with Olivia clinging to his back, her arms tight around his neck. Elise followed with Liam, her city-bred instincts compensated by raw determination. Behind them came the sounds of pursuit, not frantic or amateur, but the measured pace of hunters confident in their skills and technology. No shouted threats, no demands to surrender. These were not men who needed prisoners or information. They had been sent to erase problems permanently. The children, trained by fear and necessity, maintained preternatural silence. No crying, no complaints about scratched skin or tired legs. They understood with a terrible clarity that danger brings that sound meant death. 10 minutes into their flight, Michael signaled a halt behind a fallen tree trunk, setting Olivia down to check their surroundings. The night vision goggles he'd taken from the safe house revealed no immediate pursuit, but the woods behind them flickered with distant thermal signatures, 3, possibly 4 figures moving with tactical precision through the underbrush. "They're using thermal imaging," he whispered to Elise. "We need to mask our heat signatures." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "The stream," she breathed. "I can hear water to the east." Michael nodded, adjusting their course. "Stay close. Step exactly where I step." The small stream, when they reached it, ran cold and swift with spring runoff, uncomfortable but not immediately dangerous. Michael led them into the water, moving downstream to confuse tracking dogs if their pursuers employed them. The shock of cold water made Liam gasp, the first sound he'd made since their flight began. Elise pressed him closer, murmuring reassurance too low for even Michael to hear, maternal instinct transcending her inexperience. They followed the stream for nearly half a mile before Michael guided them back to shore, selecting a rocky outcropping that would leave minimal tracks. The diversion had cost precious time, but might buy them the lead needed to reach the highway. As they resumed their trek through the forest, Olivia tugged at Michael's sleeve, expression troubled in the dim moonlight filtering through the canopy. "Dad," she whispered, "Liam's not doing good." Michael glanced back to see Elise struggling with the boy who had gone limp in her arms, not unconscious, but withdrawn, eyes open, but unseeing, small body trembling violently. Shocked, Michael diagnosed, moving back to examine the child, his body temperatures dropping. Elise's face contorted with helpless worry. "What do we do?" "Keep him warm. Keep moving." Michael unzipped his jacket, wrapping it around Liam's shivering form. "I'll carry him. You take Olivia." The exchange was made quickly, Liam's slight weight transferring from Elise's arms to Michael's. The boy's skin felt cold and clammy, pulse rapid beneath Michael's fingers as he checked for other symptoms. "It's okay, buddy," he murmured against Liam's hair. "I've got you now. You're doing great." Whether the child heard or understood was unclear, but the physical contact seemed to help. His trembling gradually subsided, small body curling against Michael's chest like a wounded animal seeking warmth. They resumed their journey, roles reversed now, Elise leading with Olivia's hand clasped firmly in hers, Michael following with Liam. The new configuration felt strangely right, as if they'd found their natural alignment through crisis. The distant crack of branches signaled their pursuers hadn't abandoned the chase. If anything, the hunters seemed to be gaining ground, their movements becoming less cautious as urgency overtook stealth. "They know we're heading for the highway," Michael whispered when they paused to orient themselves. "They'll try to cut us off." Elise's expression hardened with determination. "Then we change direction." "We need help," Michael countered. "Reynolds authorities. We can't outrun them indefinitely." "We can't outrun them at all," Elise corrected grimly. "Not with the children. We need a defensive position." The tactical assessment surprised him, corporate executive thinking like a military strategist. "You have something in mind." Elise withdrew a phone from her pocket. Not the secure FBI device, but a sleek model Michael hadn't seen before. "Westfield maintains hunting lodges for executive retreats," she explained, activating the screen. "There's one about a mile east of here. Stocked, secured, and off the books." "How do you know they won't look there?" "Because officially I hate hunting," Elise replied with grim humor. "It's a running joke at board meetings. The one place they'd never expect to find me is a hunting lodge." The plan carried significant risk. Changing course meant abandoning the clear route to help, potentially trapping themselves if the lodge proved less secure than hoped. But with Liam's condition deteriorating and their pursuers closing in, options were limited. "East it is," Michael decided, adjusting Liam's weight against his chest. "Lead the way." They altered course, moving perpendicular to their original path, hoping to confuse their trackers, at least temporarily. Elise navigated with surprising confidence. For someone Michael had assumed was purely urban, using her phone's GPS and occasional landmarks to maintain their heading. The lodge materialized from the darkness like a mirage, a substantial structure of timber and stone windows, dark but solid walls promising at least temporary shelter. No vehicles in the small clearing, no signs of occupation. Elise approached the security panel beside the main door, entering a code with practiced efficiency. The door unlocked with an audible click that seemed unnaturally loud in the forest silence. Executive override, she explained at Michael's questioning look. Works at all company properties. The interior of the lodge smelled of pine and wood smoke, clean but disused furniture, draped with protective cover, kitchen fully stocked, but clinically untouched. A corporate retreat designed to mimic rustic charm while providing executive comforts. Michael immediately conducted a security assessment, 2 exits windows with electronic shutters, landline phone, no obvious surveillance cameras. Defensible, if not ideal. There's a first aid kit in the bathroom, Elise said, already moving toward the supplies, and emergency supplies in the basement. Get the shutters closed, Michael directed, laying Liam on the couch. Lights minimal, I'll check the perimeter. They worked with synchronized efficiency, Elise securing the lodge while Michael examined their defensive options, Olivia helping Liam drink small sips of water, coaxing him back from the edge of dissociation with gentle persistence. The lodge's basement yielded unexpected resources, not just emergency supplies, but a gun safe containing hunting rifles. Michael selected 2, checking their functionality with practiced hands, grateful for legitimate firepower against the professional killers on their trail. When he returned upstairs, Elise had transformed the main room into a combination medical station and defensive position, furniture arranged to create barriers. First aid supplies organized. Liam wrapped in thermal blankets on the couch with Olivia keeping watch beside him. His temperature's coming up, Elise reported, professional demeanor masking the fear beneath. But he's still not responsive. Michael knelt beside the boy, checking his pulse with gentle fingers. Psychological rather than physical now, he assessed. His body's protecting his mind. Will he be okay? Olivia asked, voice small but steady. Yes, Michael assured her with more confidence than he felt. He just needs time to feel safe again. The landline phone sat on the coffee table, their link to potential rescue. Michael dialed Reynolds' secure number, keeping his voice low as he reported their situation and location. She's sending a tactical team, he informed Elise after ending the call. ETA 40 minutes. Will we still be here in 40 minutes? The question held no self-pity, just clear-eyed assessment of their precarious situation. Michael checked the rifle's ammunition, mind calculating odds and variables. That depends on how quickly they tracked our change in direction. Best case, we confused them enough to buy time. Worst case, he didn't need to finish. The worst case was evident in the weapons he distributed and the defensive positions they'd established. Elise settled beside him at the window, acceptance rather than fear in her expression. I never fired a gun before this week, she admitted, handling the rifle with cautious respect. The FBI agent who gave me the crash course said I was a natural. Military in the family, Michael asked, more to maintain conversation than from genuine curiosity. My adoptive father, Elise confirmed. Marine Corps. He wasn't much for showing affection, but he believed in preparedness. Took me to shooting ranges a few times before deciding I was too soft for it. The glimpse into her upbringing explained much about the woman she'd become, the steel beneath the corporate polish, the self-reliance that had kept her functioning through crisis. Rebecca hated guns, Michael said, the memory surfacing unexpectedly. She understood why I kept one after my service, but she never touched it. Said her job was saving lives, not taking them. And now her son is in danger because of choices I made, Elise whispered, guilt sharpening her features. Corporations, I enabled people I trusted. You couldn't have known, Michael offered the absolution she seemed to need. Couldn't I, Elise countered. I built a company culture where profit trumped ethics, where questions were discouraged and dissent was punished. I created the perfect environment for this kind of corruption to flourish. Before Michael could respond, a subtle shift in the forest sounds outside silenced them both, the absence of normal nighttime activity signaling disturbance by human presence. They're here, he said quietly, shifting to a better vantage point at the window. Multiple approaches coordinated. Elise moved to the children, guiding them to the most protected position behind the kitchen island. Stay down, she instructed, voice steady despite the circumstances. No matter what happens, no matter what you hear, stay hidden until one of us comes for you. Olivia nodded, wrapping protective arms around Liam's still form. The boy had curled into fetal position, Mr. Whiskers clutched against his chest, eyes open but unfocused, present in body but mind, retreated to safer territory. Reynolds is coming, Michael reminded Elise as they took defensive positions. We just need to hold out until help arrives. Elise checked her weapon with newfound competence, corporate executive transformed by necessity into something harder, more primeval. What if they have the same intel? What if they know exactly when the FBI will arrive and plan to finish this before then? The question hung unanswered as the first attack came not with dramatic gunfire, but with surgical precision, a small device crashing through the window to release cloudy gas into the lodge's main room. Tear gas, Michael identified, pulling a wet cloth from his pocket to cover his mouth and nose. They want us disoriented, not dead, at least not immediately. Elise followed his example, eyes watering, but focus maintained as shadows moved outside, testing entrances, probing for weaknesses in their defense. The first gunshot shattered the remaining silence, a single round from a silenced weapon striking the window frame inches from Michael's position. Warning or missed kill, the message was clear. Their hunters had located them and were moving in for the final confrontation. Michael returned fire-controlled bursts designed to keep the attackers at bay rather than hit targets he could barely identify in the darkness. Elise provided covering fire from her position, her inexperience compensated by steady nerves and clear purpose. From behind the kitchen island came a sound that cut through the combat chaos. Liam's voice, small but suddenly desperately alert. "Mom," he called, confusion and terror mingling in that single syllable. "Mom, where are you?" The disorientation wasn't surprising given his traumatized state, but the timing couldn't have been worse. Michael saw Elise flinch at the child's cry, maternal instinct warring with tactical necessity. "Stay down," she called to the children, maintaining her defensive position even as her eyes reflected the agony of leaving them uncomforted. Outside, the attackers had paused, perhaps reassessing after meeting unexpected resistance. The momentary lull allowed Michael to check the children, Olivia holding Liam with fierce protectiveness, the boy now fully awake and terrified, tears streaming down his face as he called for a mother who would never answer. "She's not here, Liam," Olivia was explaining with heartbreaking gentleness. "But we are. We'll keep you safe." The simple promise, child to child, carried more weight than any adult assurance could have. Liam's cries subsided to hiccuping sobs, small body pressed against Olivia's side. Mr. Whiskers clutched between them like a talisman. The reprieve ended as new attackers appeared at different approach points, more heavily armed, more aggressive in their tactics. These weren't the methodical hunters of earlier pursuit, but combat-trained operatives with orders to complete their mission regardless of resistance. At least 3 on the west side, Michael reported, military assessment cutting through fear. 2 more approaching from the east. Professional equipment, tactical formation. "Who are these people?" Elise demanded, firing toward movement at the tree line. "Corporate security doesn't operate like this." "Military contractors," Michael assessed grimly. "Mercenaries with corporate funding. Deniable assets." The revelation should have been shocking, that a pharmaceutical company would employ what amounted to a private military force. But after everything they had learned about Westfield Industries' secret operations, it seemed merely the logical extension of existing corruption. A new sound entered the cacophony of combat, the distinctive whoomp-whoomp of helicopter boaters approaching rapidly from the south. "FBI tactical team." Michael identified, relief edging his voice. "They're coming in hot." The attackers heard it too, their coordinated assault becoming more desperate as their window of opportunity narrowed. Gunfire intensified, rounds striking the lodge's exterior with increasing frequency. Then, with sudden and terrifying clarity, Michael understood their strategy. "They're not trying to get in," he realized. "They're trying to keep us contained." Even as the words left his mouth, a new sound registered beneath the gunfire and helicopter. Approach, a soft, rhythmic beeping from the lodge's exterior wall. "Explosives." Elise breathed, recognition dawning in her eyes. "They're going to bring the whole structure down." The tactical shift made brutal sense. If they couldn't extract their targets before FBI arrival, they would eliminate all evidence in one decisive strike, leaving nothing but destroyed bodies. in what could be attributed to a tragic gas leak explosion at a remote hunting lodge. The basement, Michael decided instantly, reinforced foundation, smaller target profile. Elise was already moving toward the children, gathering Liam into her arms while Olivia clung to her side. How long? Seconds, not minutes. Michael assessed, covering their retreat with suppressing fire toward the most active attack positions. Move now. They descended the basement stairs as the first explosive charge detonated. Not at the foundation as Michael had feared, but at the lodge's main support column. The structure groaned ominously, timbers shifting with the promise of imminent collapse. The basement offered limited protection, concrete foundation, but wooden ceiling storage rather than proper shelter. Michael directed them to the most reinforced corner, positioning heavy metal shelving to create a makeshift barrier above them. Cover your heads, he instructed, placing his body over the children as Elise braced against his side, forming a human shield of adult bodies, protecting their most vulnerable. The second explosion came before they could fully settle, more powerful than the first. The lodge's structure failed catastrophically, upper floors pancaking downward in a cacophony of splintering wood and shattering glass. Dust filled the air, choking and disorienting as debris rained around their huddled forms. Michael felt rather than saw timbers striking their protective shelving, the metal frame bending, but holding under the assault. Beneath him, Olivia and Liam remained terrifyingly silent, not crying or screaming, just breathing in small, controlled gasps, as if afraid that sound might bring further destruction. When the collapse finally settled, they were entombed in a pocket of relative safety, surrounded by debris, but protected by their reinforced corner in the shelving that had intercepted the worst of the falling structure. Sound off, Michael ordered, military protocol, providing structure amid chaos. Injuries. I'm okay, Olivia whispered, voice small but steady. Liam's okay too. Elise? Michael turned to find her grimacing in pain, hand pressed against her side where a jagged piece of wood had penetrated her jacket. Superficial, she managed, though the growing bloodstains suggested otherwise. The children, unharmed. Michael confirmed, relief momentarily overshadowing their dire circumstances. But we need to get out before the secondary collapse. The basement's concrete walls had held, but the wooden ceiling had completely filled debris, creating a chaotic landscape of broken furniture and structural components. Their protective corner remained their only safe space, but also threatened to become their tomb if the remaining structure shifted. Above them, the sounds of combat continued, the helicopter's arrival, apparently engaging the attacking force, providing temporary reprieve from immediate pursuit. But the respite brought its own dangers, supporting timbers, weakened by explosion, and fire might fail at any moment, completing the destruction the initial attack had begun. There, Elise pointed toward a faint glow of light several yards away, not flames but the night sky visible through a gap in the collapsed structure. Possible exit point. Michael assessed the opening with tactical precision, small but potentially navigable, requiring crawling through unstable debris with significant risk of triggering further collapse. Under normal circumstances, an unacceptable risk. But trapped and wounded with two children in an actively failing structure, acceptable risk took on new parameters. I'll go first, he decided. Test the route, clear obstacles. Olivia follows, then Liam, then you. Elise nodded, already shifting to create space for his movement. Be careful, she said simply, the understatement almost comical, given their circumstances. Always Michael responded with equally inappropriate lightness, the gallows humor of those facing mortality with clear eyes. The route to freedom proved even more treacherous than anticipated, jagged edges, threatening cuts with every movement, debris shifting underfoot, each breath drawing dust-filled air into struggling lungs. Michael navigated by instinct and training, testing each potential handhold before committing weight, creating a path for smaller bodies to follow. When he finally emerged into the night air, the tactical situation became immediately clear. The FBI helicopter hovered above the destroyed lodge spotlight, illuminating the clearing where armed agents engaged with retreating attackers. Gunfire echoed through the forest as the mercenaries attempted to escape their mission, compromised, but not their survival instincts. Michael signaled to the helicopter using military hand gestures to indicate survivors requiring extraction. The spotlight shifted, finding him amid the destruction, and a response came immediately, rappel lines descending as tactical team members prepared for rescue operations. Returning to the extraction route, Michael called into the darkness. Olivia, come through now. His daughter emerged with dirt-streaked determination, no tears or complaints despite the ordeal. Michael lifted her clear of the debris field, directing her toward approaching FBI personnel before returning for Liam. The boy proved more challenging, frozen with terror at the prospect of navigating the collapsed structure alone. Michael had to reach further in encouraging with steady voice and extended hand until small fingers finally grasped his in desperate trust. That's it, he praised as Liam inched forward. You're doing great, buddy. Almost there. When the child finally emerged, Michael gathered him close, feeling the violent trembling that signaled emotional overload beyond words. I've got you, he murmured against matted hair. You're safe now. Passing Liam to waiting medical personnel, Michael turned back for Elise only to hear the ominous groaning of shifting debris from within the collapse. Elise, he called, dropping to his knees at the extraction point. Move now. Her voice came back strained but determined. I'm stuck. Something's pinned my leg. Michael didn't hesitate, plunging back into the unstable structure, despite shouts of warning from FBI personnel. The road had deteriorated since his last passage, new debris fallen to block direct access. He found Elise half buried beneath a collapsed support beam, face pale with pain and blood loss, but eyes still alert, still fighting. The children, she asked immediately, prioritizing their safety above her own predicament. Safe, Michael assured her, assessing the beam pinning her lower body. Too heavy to lift alone, too unstable to shift without risking further collapse. Help is here, we just need to get you out. Elise's laugh held no humor. Easier said than done. Above them, the remaining structure groaned with imminent failure dust and smaller debris already beginning to rain down as support points reached critical stress. We have minutes, maybe seconds, Michael assessed grimly. I need you to pull when I lift. It won't work, Elise countered with brutal honesty. You'll just get trapped too. Not an option. Michael rejected her fatalism, positioning himself to leverage the beam. On my count, 1, 2, 3. He strained against the massive timber muscles burning with effort beyond physical capacity, fueled by desperate need rather than realistic capability. The beam shifted fractionally, not enough for escape, just enough to prove the impossibility of the task. Michael, Elise said quietly, calm acceptance replacing fear in her expression. You need to go. The children need you. I'm not leaving you, he responded automatically, the words emerging not from tactical assessment, but from something deeper, more primal. Yes, you are, Elise countered with sudden authority, the CEO used to being obeyed. Liam needs you. My sister would want him safe above everything else. The invocation of Rebecca struck with physical force, the understanding that the choice before him was not about Elise versus the children, but about honoring or betraying his wife's deepest priority, her son's well-being. There has to be another way, he insisted, searching their surroundings for tools, for alternatives, for anything that might change the brutal equation of their circumstances. There isn't, Elise said with the clarity of acceptance. And we both know it. Please, Michael, don't let my mistakes cost Liam his chance at family, at safety. Before he could respond, new voices called from beyond the collapse, FBI tactical team members equipped with rescue gear approaching their position with professional urgency. Here, Michael shouted, hope flaring despite logical assessment. We need extraction equipment. The rescuers navigated the debris field with practiced efficiency, bringing hydraulic tools designed for precisely this scenario. What Michael couldn't accomplish with desperate strength, their equipment managed with mechanical precision, lifting the beam just enough for Elise to be pulled free. Her leg was clearly broken, blood soaking her pant leg, where bone had penetrated skin. But she was alive, conscious, fighting, despite the pain that would have incapacitated most civilians. The children, she repeated, as rescuers secured her for extraction. Are they really safe? Yes, Michael assured her, clasping her hand as they began the delicate process of navigating out of the collapsing structure. They're with medical personnel. Reynolds is with them. Relief washed over Elise's features, muscles relaxing as the need for vigilance finally eased. Then it was worth it, she whispered. All of it, for them. The extraction proceeded with professional efficiency, rescuers creating a stable route through the debris, passing Elise's stretcher through in sections to avoid further structural collapse. Michael followed closely, unwilling to be separated despite logical understanding that his presence complicated their work. When they finally emerged into the night air, the tactical situation had resolved, attackers neutralized or fled, FBI personnel securing the perimeter with military precision. The helicopter remained on station rotors, turning in preparation for immediate evacuation. Liam and Olivia waited beside the aircraft wrapped in thermal blankets, faces illuminated by emergency lighting. Their expressions transformed at the sight of both adults emerging alive, relief replacing the hollow-eyed shock of children preparing for another devastating loss. As medical personnel transferred Elise to the helicopter, Liam broke away from his caretakers, running to her side with unexpected determination. His small hand reached for hers, fingers intertwining with instinctive trust that transcended their complicated history. "You came back," he said simply, the accusation of abandonment replaced by wonder at her return. Elise's composure finally cracked, tears tracking through the dirt and blood on her face. "I'll always come back for you," she promised, voice breaking on the words. "Always." The vow hung in the night air as they were loaded into the helicopter. Not empty reassurance, but covenant sealed in blood and sacrifice. Whatever came next, whatever challenges still awaited beyond this forest battlefield, that promise would remain their foundation. As the helicopter lifted off, carrying them away from destruction toward uncertain safety, Michael found himself watching Elise with new understanding, seeing not Rebecca's replacement or even her echo, but a woman in her own right, flawed human capable of both catastrophic mistakes and transcendent courage. Beside him, Olivia leaned against his shoulder, exhaustion finally claiming her resilience. "Are we a family now?" she asked, the question cutting through tactical considerations to the heart of their situation. Michael glanced at Elise, finding her watching him with equal question in her eyes, the corporate armor completely stripped away, revealing only the woman beneath, awaiting judgment she had no right to expect mercy from. "Yes," he answered, the word encompassing more than he could articulate. "A complicated, messy one, but family nonetheless." Satisfaction settled on Olivia's features as she drifted towards sleep, secure in the knowledge that her world, though violently disrupted, had expanded rather than contracted through crisis. Across the helicopter's interior, Liam remained pressed against Elise's side, unwilling to be separated, despite medical personnel's attempts to treat her injuries. Mr. Whiskers sat vigilant on his lap, single glass eye, reflecting emergency lights in Ruby Flash's guardian, and witness to their unlikely cohesion. The helicopter banked eastward, carrying them away from destruction toward medical facilities and debriefings, toward witness protection and new identities, toward a future none of them had anticipated, but all now faced together. Below them, the destroyed lodge burned against the night sky, evidence erased, secrets buried beneath collapsing timbers. But not all secrets, not all evidence. Some truths had escaped the flames carried in the bodies and memories of those who survived. And in the shadows of the forest, a figure watched the helicopter's departure with cold calculation. Not a mercenary or FBI agent, but someone with deeper connection to their unfolding drama. Someone who understood that the night's violence had eliminated some problems while creating new, more complex ones. Someone who knew that Westfield Industries' board of directors would not accept failure, would not tolerate loose ends, would not rest until all threats to their operation were permanently neutralized. The real battle had only just begun. The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and fear. Michael paced its length for the 17th time, military boots silent on polished floors, body functioning despite 48 sleepless hours. FBI agents flanked the doorways at either end, professional alert weapons visible beneath tactical jackets. Through the observation window, he could see Elise in the hospital bed, pale against white sheets, medical technology monitoring vital signs with digital precision. Her leg had required surgery, compound fracture with tissue damage, but the doctors were optimistic about recovery. Physical recovery, at least. The psychological impact of recent events remained uncharted territory for all of them. "Dad," Olivia's voice pulled him from tactical assessment back to immediate reality. She sat in the waiting area with Liam, both children subdued but functioning resilience of youth, bending but not breaking under trauma's weight. "Yes, sweetheart." Michael crossed to kneel beside her chair, bringing himself to her eye level, a habit formed when Rebecca first got sick, when difficult conversations became necessary. "Is Aunt Elise going to die?" The question came with directness unique to children, cutting through adult obfuscation to the heart of fear. No, Michael answered with certainty he couldn't logically justify but emotionally needed to project. She's hurt, but she's strong. She'll recover. Liam watched this exchange with solemn attention, with their whiskers clutched against his chest. The teddy bear had been cleaned by hospital staff, its matted fur, now fluffy, missing eye, somehow making it appear more vigilant rather than damaged. Like my mom didn't, the boy asked quietly, the question revealing his understanding ran deeper than Michael had credited. The comparison struck with physical force the parallel circumstances, the hospital setting, the uncertainty shrouded in adult reassurances. For Liam, this scenario carried echoes of his mother's final decline patterns, recognizable even to a 7-year-old. Different kind of injury, Michael explained, honesty tempered with age-appropriate clarity. Your mom was sick inside in ways doctors couldn't fix. Elise has a broken leg and some cuts. Doctors are very good at fixing those things. Liam absorbed this distinction with thoughtful concentration. But the bad men might come back, he observed, cutting to the heart of their larger predicament. That's why we have FBI agents protecting us. Michael acknowledged respect for the child's perception, preventing patronizing denial. They're making sure we're all safe while Elise gets better. Agent Reynolds approached before the conversation could continue, her professional demeanor unchanged despite the emergency extraction and subsequent security operations of the past 2 days. Mr. Turner, she greeted him with crisp efficiency. Miss Westfield is awake. She's asking for you. Michael glanced at the children, protective instinct, warring with the need to speak with Elise. I'll stay with them, Reynolds offered, understanding his hesitation. We have secure transportation ready. When the doctors clear Ms. Westfield for release, I need to brief all of you on the next steps. The phrase next steps carried weight beyond its simple syllables. Witness protection, new identities, severed connections to everything and everyone from their previous lives. Reality waiting beyond the temporary security of hospital walls. Michael nodded, turning back to the children. I'm going to check on Elise. Agent Reynolds will stay with you. I won't be long. Tell her we made her a card, Olivia said, holding up construction paper decorated with careful childish art. A family of 4 stick figures standing before what appeared to be a fortress, with FBI agents patrolling its walls. The image caught Michael unexpectedly. The children's conception of their new reality, security, and family intertwined in crayon simplicity. I will, he promised, accepting the card with appropriate solemnity. Elise's hospital room carried the hushed efficiency of modern medicine machines, monitoring vital signs, 4 delivering pain management, and antibiotics lighting, subdued to encourage healing. She looked smaller against the institutional bedding, corporate armor, completely stripped away, leaving only the human beneath. Her eyes opened as he entered, recognition, bringing immediate focus despite medication. The children, she asked, voice rough from intubation during surgery. Safe, Michael assured her, settling into the chair beside her bed, drawing pictures and asking questions, holding up better than most adults would. Relief softened her features momentarily before calculation returned. Reynolds is here, outside with the kids, ready to move us when you're cleared. Elise nodded, wincing slightly as the movement jarred her injuries. The doctors say tomorrow, possibly the day after, depends on how the wound sites look. Michael studied her with clinical assessment, color improved from the gray pallor of blood loss, eyes clear, despite pain medication determination evident beneath physical weakness. A survivor's profile. You could have died, he said, finally, the statement carrying neither accusation nor gratitude, simply acknowledgement of tactical reality. So could you, Elise countered, meeting his gaze directly. Coming back for me wasn't the strategic choice. It wasn't strategy. The admission surprised even Michael as the words formed. Something shifted in Elise's expression. Vulnerability quickly concealed beneath pragmatic focus. What did Reynolds tell you about the situation? Harrington is in custody but not talking. 2 board members have been arrested, 2 more still at large. The weapons research has been secured as evidence. Michael recited the facts with military precision. The official story is that the lodge explosion was a gas leak accident. 3 unidentified bodies were recovered from the site. Their cleanup team, Elise concluded grimly, eliminated to remove evidence. Most likely. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable but weighted with unspoken realities. The hospital room's beeping monitors provided rhythmic backdrop to their shared understanding. This reprieve was temporary. The danger merely paused rather than eliminated. "We need to talk about what happens next," Elise said finally, professional efficiency asserting itself despite her physical condition. "About Liam." Michael tensed involuntarily, protective instinct flaring. "What about him?" "He's my sister's son. Legally, I'm his guardian." Elise's voice remained carefully neutral. "But the practical reality is more complicated." Meaning he's bonded with you." She acknowledged, no resentment coloring the observation. "He trusts you in ways he doesn't trust me yet. And where we're going, whatever new lives Reynolds has arranged for us, he'll need that trust, that security." Michael studied her with renewed assessment, recognizing the direction of her thoughts. "You're suggesting he stay with me in witness protection." "I'm suggesting we discuss what's best for him," Elise clarified, without ego or legal technicalities clouding the decision. The approach, rational, child-centered, devoid of territorial claiming, caught Michael off guard. He'd expected corporate entitlement legal arguments, the assertions of blood connection over emotional bonds. Instead, Elise offered partnership in decision-making, prioritizing Liam's welfare above personal preference. "He needs stability," Michael acknowledged. "Structure, security, consistent caregivers." "All things you provide naturally," Elise agreed. "My corporate experience hardly qualifies me for sudden parenthood." "But you're his family," Michael countered, surprising himself with the argument against his own interests. His connection to Rebecca, to his mother's history. Elise's fingers twisted in the hospital blanket, a rare physical manifestation of emotional turmoil. "Which means nothing if I can't give him what he needs day to day. I've spent my adult life in boardrooms and corporate jets, not planning school lunches and handling nightmares." The self-assessment held no self-pity, just clear-eyed recognition of limitations. Yet something in her expression, a carefully contained longing beneath pragmatic surrender, compelled Michael to offer what he hadn't planned. "It doesn't have to be either or," he suggested. "In witness protection, we'll be placed together anyway, shared history, shared threat profile. We could collaborate." The proposal hung between them, not fully formed edges undefined, but containing possibilities neither had individually considered. Co-parenting, Elise clarified, corporate mind immediately structuring the concept. "You handling daily care, me contributing," she faltered, uncharacteristically uncertain. "Everything else," Michael completed. "Financial support, educational planning, cultural experiences, the things you know that I don't." "A partnership," Elise said, testing the concept cautiously. "For the children." Michael qualified, maintaining emotional boundaries. "For the children." She agreed, relief evident in her relaxed posture. The discussion paused as a nurse entered to check Elise's vitals and adjust medication professional efficiency, creating momentary privacy barrier between their unorthodox negotiations. When they were alone again, Elise's expression had shifted. Calculation replaced by something more vulnerable, more genuine. "I have no right to ask this of you," she acknowledged. "Taking on my sister's child, accommodating my presence in your life, all because I brought danger to your door." "You didn't choose this situation," Michael reminded her, fairness compelling the observation despite lingering resentment. "And Liam is Rebecca's son. That matters." The simple statement encompassed complex emotional territory obligations to the dead connections that transcended legal definitions, the weight of promises never voiced but deeply felt. "Thank you," Elise said softly, the words clearly unfamiliar in their genuine application, rather than corporate politeness. Michael nodded acceptance rather than dismissal of her gratitude. "Olivia made you a card." He remembered retrieving the folded construction paper from his pocket. Elise accepted it with careful hands, studying the crayon illustration with undisguised emotion. "A fortress," she observed, finger tracing the protective walls surrounding the stick figure family. "Safe house, I think," Michael corrected. "She's been asking Reynolds about witness protection. Apparently it sounds like an adventure to a 9-year-old. "Children are remarkably adaptable," Elise noted, wonder coloring her voice. "More than we give them credit for." "Necessity," Michael said simply. "They adapt because they must. Doesn't mean there isn't damage beneath the adaptation." Elise's gaze sharpened, recognizing the observation came from personal experience. "Like soldiers," she suggested, functioning despite trauma because the mission requires it. The comparison startled Michael with its accuracy, the parallel between childhood survival mechanisms and military coping strategies not previously considered. Yes, he acknowledged, very much like that. While their conversation paused, as Agent Reynolds entered professional focus, immediately changing the room's atmosphere from personal to tactical. "Ms. Westfield, good to see you alert," she greeted, closing the door firmly behind her. "We need to discuss security arrangements moving forward." Elise straightened against her pillows, corporate executive emerging despite hospital gown and IV lines. "I assume witness protection is the next step." Eventually, Reynolds confirmed the qualifier, immediately sharpening Michael's attention. "But there's a complication we need to address first." "What kind of complication?" Michael asked, military alertness fully engaged. Reynolds hesitated, calculating her approach. "The remaining board members have gone to ground, but they haven't abandoned their operation. We've intercepted communications indicating they're continuing the weapons program from offshore facilities. Without the research data you secured," Elise pointed out, logical mind finding the flaw. "That's the complication," Reynolds admitted. "They don't need the original research anymore. They've moved to human testing." The implication landed with physical impact. Human testing of genetic weapons, targeted bioweapons deployed against living subjects, where Michael demanded tactical assessment overriding emotional response. "How many potential victims?" "A remote facility on private island in the South Pacific," Reynolds revealed. "Officially a wellness retreat for corporate executives. Actually a testing ground using unwitting subjects with specific genetic markers." Elise's face had drained of color, professional composure cracking under horrific realization. "My company retreat program," she whispered. "I authorized it last year, exclusive destination packages for top performers and key clients. And they're using your legitimate business operation as cover," Reynolds confirmed. "The subjects believe they're receiving cutting-edge health treatments. In reality, they're being exposed to targeted pathogens designed to affect specific genetic profiles." "How many people?" Michael repeated, focusing on quantifiable threat assessment. "Current intelligence indicates approximately 30 individuals at the facility," Reynolds answered, "with new groups cycling through every 2 weeks. And you haven't shut it down because," Elise demanded, corporate authority asserting itself despite her physical condition. "International jurisdiction complications," Reynolds explained with evident frustration. "The island is technically sovereign territory through complex corporate structuring. We need irrefutable evidence of human rights violations to override those protections." "Which you don't have," Michael concluded grimly. "We have financial records, corporate communications research data," Reynolds listed, "but no direct evidence of the testing program itself. Nothing that would stand up in international court." The tactical implications crystallized with terrible clarity. Without direct evidence, the testing would continue claiming lives while legal mechanism ground forward at bureaucratic pace. "What do you need?" Elise asked, cutting through procedural obstacles with executive directness. Reynolds met her gaze with equal frankness. "Someone who can access the facility legitimately. Someone they would never suspect of gathering evidence. Someone with authorization codes and executive clearance." Understanding dawned in simultaneous realization. "You need me." Elise stated the words carrying no surprise, only confirmation of logical conclusion. "Absolutely not." Michael interjected, protective instinct, overriding tactical assessment. "She's just had surgery. She's a primary target herself, and which makes her perfect," Reynolds countered with professional detachment. "They believe she died in the lodge explosion. The body recovery and identification was deliberately mishandled to support that conclusion." "You set that up," Michael realized, reassessing the FBI agent's involvement with new understanding. "You planned for this contingency." Reynolds didn't deny the accusation. "We anticipated that evidence alone might not be sufficient, that direct intervention might become necessary. So you're proposing to send an injured civilian into hostile territory." Michael summarized military experience, translating bureaucratic euphemisms into tactical reality. "Without backup, without extraction plan, without guarantee of success." "Not without backup," Reynolds corrected. "Miss Westfield would have support. Limited but effective." Elise had remained silent during this exchange, analytical mind visibly processing implications and variables. The retreat participants, she said finally, they're being selected based on genetic profiles similar to those the weapons are designed to target. Yes, Reynolds confirmed, respecting her deductive reasoning. Primarily individuals with specific ethnic backgrounds or genetic markers of interest to potential buyers. Genocide and beta testing. Elise translated corporate jargon, making the horror more rather than less tangible. Using my company, my programs, my signature on the authorizations. The personal responsibility landed with visible impact, her body physically flinching beneath the weight of complicity, however unwitting. You didn't know, Michael reminded her, the absolution offered despite his own tactical objections to Reynolds' proposal. Ignorance isn't innocence, Elise countered with brutal self-assessment. Not at this level of consequence. She turned to Reynolds with renewed focused decision evident in her expression. I'll do it, whatever you need. Elise, Michael began objection, forming on multiple grounds, tactical, medical, ethical. Would you do any differently? She interrupted. Challenge direct in her steady gaze. If you had unwittingly enabled something this horrific, would you walk away because of personal risk? The question struck with precision at his core values. Duty, responsibility, protection of the vulnerable. Military ethics distilled to their essence. No, he admitted reluctantly, but I'd insist on proper operational parameters, support, extraction protocols, which we'll provide, Reynolds assured them both. This isn't an unsanctioned suicide mission. It's a controlled operation with defined objectives. Then I want in, Michael's stated decision formed with absolute certainty. If she goes, I go. Reynolds shook her head. Impossible. You have no plausible reason to be at an executive retreat. Your presence would trigger immediate suspicion. And the children need protection. Michael countered, parental responsibility warring with tactical imperatives. If both of us are involved in this operation, who ensures their safety? I've already arranged comprehensive security, Reynolds responded. A safe house with round-the-clock protection completely off the grid. They'll be secure while we complete this mission. The word we registered with significance. You're going, Michael clarified. As Ms. Westfield's new executive assistant, Reynolds confirmed, my background is sufficient to create a plausible cover identity, close enough for protection, separated enough to avoid suspicion. The operational structure began taking coherent shape in Michael's tactical assessment, Elise as primary infiltrator, leveraging legitimate access, Reynolds as close support, maintaining communication and extraction options. Limited personnel, reducing operational footprint while maximizing cover integrity. It could work, which didn't mean he had to like it. And my role, he asked, already anticipating the answer. Protecting the children, Reynolds stated, confirming his expectation. They trust you implicitly. Their security, physical and psychological, depends on your presence. The assignment was strategically sound, emotionally manipulative, and ultimately irrefutable. The children's well-being had to take precedence over operational involvement, however much his military instincts rebelled against sending others into danger while remaining behind. How long, he asked, tactical, mind-shifting to timeline assessment. 1 week, Reynolds specified. Enough time to access the facility's secure systems document, the testing program, and extract without triggering suspicion. And if something goes wrong, the question emerged from protective instinct rather than tactical doubt. Reynolds' expression remained professionally neutral. Contingency protocols are in place. Beyond that, operational security requires limited knowledge distribution. Translation: if something goes wrong, you may never know what happened to them. The unspoken reality settled between them with physical weight, the risk inherent in separation, in entrusting Elise's safety to protocols and personnel beyond his direct control. I need time with the children before we implement this. Elise stated, not question, but requirement. They deserve explanation, preparation, especially Liam. Agreed, Reynolds conceded. You have 48 hours before medical discharge. We'll use that time to prepare the children and finalize operational details. The conversation continued with logistical specifics, communication protocols, emergency extraction parameters, cover identity development. Michael contributed from military experience, Elise from corporate knowledge, Reynolds from intelligence background, 3 distinct perspectives converging on operational framework. Throughout the planning, Michael found himself studying Elise with new assessment, noting the clarity of her tactical thinking, the precision of her risk analysis, the absence of hesitation when facing necessary danger. Not a corporate executive playing at heroism, but a woman discovering capacity for calculated courage previously untested. When Reynolds finally departed to implement initial preparations, silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with unspoken concerns with possibilities too fragile or frightening to articulate. "You don't have to do this," Michael said finally, offering what he knew was futile reprieve. "Reynolds can find another way to gather evidence." "Would you turn away?" Elise countered the question, rhetorical in its obvious answer. "If you were responsible, however unwittingly—" "No," he acknowledged, honesty compelling the admission. "But my training prepares me for these scenarios. Yours doesn't." Elise's laugh held no humor. "My training prepared me to make decisions with billions of dollars and thousands of lives at stake, to calculate acceptable losses against necessary gains, to function under pressure that would break most people." She met his gaze directly. Different battlefield, same fundamental skills. The assessment was accurate, if incomplete. "Combat situations aren't boardroom negotiations," he pointed out. "The consequences are immediate, physical, and irreversible." "Like cancer," Elise suggested quietly. "Like watching someone you love die by inches while maintaining functional exterior for the world. Like raising a child alone after unimaginable loss." The comparison landed with unexpected force, the recognition that trauma and resilience weren't exclusive to military experience, that Elise had navigated her own battlefields different, but not lesser. "Point taken," Michael conceded, "but promise me something. If I can—" "Don't take unnecessary risks," he requested, the words inadequate for the sentiment behind them. "The children need you to come back." The simple statement encompassed complex reality that despite their brief acquaintance, despite the complicated circumstances of their connection, Elise had become essential to their makeshift family's integrity. Her absence would create wound beyond his capacity to heal alone. "I promise," she said solemnly, understanding the weight behind his request, "if only because I finally have something worth coming back for." The admission hung between them, vulnerable, honest, stripping away pretense to reveal the emotional foundation forming beneath their pragmatic alliance. Before Michael could respond, the door opened to admit Olivia and Liam, escorted by a junior FBI agent who retreated immediately after delivering her charges. "The nice lady said we could visit for 15 minutes, Olivia announced, approaching Elise's bed with careful consideration of medical equipment. "Are you feeling better?" "Much better," Elise assured her, genuine warmth replacing professional composure. "Especially now that you're here. Thank you for the beautiful card." Liam remained by the door, uncertainty evident in his rigid posture. Mr. Whiskers clutched against his chest like armor against potential hurt. "It's okay, buddy," Michael encouraged gently. "Elise is just resting. The doctors fixed her leg." The boy approached with cautious steps, stopping at a safe distance from the hospital bed. "Does it hurt?" he asked, voice barely audible. "A little," Elise answered honestly, "but the medicine helps, and seeing you helps even more." Liam studied her with solemn assessment, child's perception cutting through adult pretense. "You got hurt because of me," he stated, guilt evident beneath the simple words. "No," Elise countered, immediately leaning forward, despite the pain the movement clearly caused. "I got hurt because bad people were doing bad things, and we stopped them. That's something to be proud of, not feel guilty about." The distinction seemed to register Liam's posture, relaxing fractionally. "Are the bad people gone now?" The question hung in tense silence, adults exchanging glances laden with knowledge they couldn't share. "Some of them," Michael answered carefully. "The FBI is working on finding the rest. And we're going to a special safe place until they do," Olivia added with the confidence of a child who had absorbed adult explanations and translated them into acceptable framework. "Like in witness protection movies." "That's right," Elise confirmed, finding child-appropriate truth within operational complexity. "We'll have different names for a while, like a game, but we'll all be together." The reassurance clearly resonated with both children, the promise of togetherness more significant than procedural details beyond their comprehension. "Will I still be me inside?" Liam asked, the philosophical depth of the question belying his age. "Yes," Michael assured him, recognizing the existential concern beneath childish phrasing. Names are just what other people call us. Who we are inside stays the same. Liam considered this with the serious concentration children reserve for concepts adults often dismissed as simple. Okay, he decided, finally moving closer to Elise's bed. Can I see your stitches? The abrupt shift from philosophical to practical, characteristic of childhood's fluid boundaries, startled a laugh from Elise. They're covered with bandages right now, she explained, but when they take them off, you can see if you want to. I saw Dad's stitches when he cut his hand fixing the sink. Olivia contributed professional, medical knowledge implied in her authoritative tone. They look like a centipede. That's a very accurate description, Elise commended, treating the observation with appropriate seriousness. Mine probably looks similar, just bigger. The conversation continued with the meandering quality unique to children. Serious questions about recovery, interspersed with detailed accounts of hospital cafeteria desserts, and observations about the FBI agent's identical haircuts. Throughout, Michael observed the interaction with analytical attention, noting Liam's gradual physical approach to Olivia's protective, hovering the natural rhythm, developing between adults and children despite their brief acquaintance. Family forming from crisis bonds, strengthening through shared experience rather than shared blood. Not traditional, not perfect, but real in its imperfect authenticity. When the 15 minutes concluded with the junior agent's apologetic return, the children departed with reluctance, softened by promises of longer visits tomorrow. He's starting to trust me, Elise observed once they were alone, cautious hope evident beneath clinical assessment. Liam, it's small, but it's progress. Children recognize authenticity, Michael noted. You've stopped trying to be what you think an aunt should be and started being yourself with him. He responds to that. The observation landed with visible impact recognition rather than offense at his directness. Corporate habits die hard, she acknowledged, presenting the image people expect rather than genuine self. He doesn't need perfect, Michael offered from hard-earned parental experience. He needs consistent, present, real. Qualities I'm not sure I possess in abundance. Elise admitted rare vulnerability, breaking through professional composure. You're doing better than you think, Michael countered, fairness compelling the honest assessment. With both children, they respond to you. The simple validations seem to affect Elise more deeply than elaborate praise might have, genuine recognition of effort rather than empty compliment. Thank you, she said quietly. Coming from you, that means something. The acknowledgement of his parental credibility created unexpected connection between them. Recognition of shared commitment, despite their different approaches, different backgrounds, different relationships to the children, now in their joint care. Get some rest, Michael advised, professional detachment reasserting itself as he stood to leave. You'll need your strength for what's coming. Elise nodded, medical reality asserting itself in the fatigue evident in her features despite stubborn will. Michael, she called as he reached the door. When I'm gone, if something happens... It won't, he interrupted, rejecting the possibility through sheer determination. But if it does, she persisted, executive mind, insisting on contingency planning. Tell Liam I found my way back to his mother's family, that the circle closed, that she never stopped looking for me, and in the end, I found my way home through him. The request carried weight beyond its simple syllables, legacy, meaning narrative framework for potential loss. Not morbid speculation, but practical preparation, ensuring meaning would exist even if she did not survive to create it herself. You can tell him yourself when you return, Michael countered, unwilling to accept alternative outcomes. But yes, I would tell him that, and more. The promise hung between them as he departed, commitment extending beyond operational parameters to emotional territory neither had anticipated navigating together. 7 days later, Michael stood at the safe house window, scanning the perimeter with military precision for the 14th time since dawn. The children remained asleep in their shared room, Olivia and Liam having refused separate accommodations since Elise's departure, finding security in proximity to each other. The rural property stretched in isolated tranquility, 10 acres of woodland surrounding the modest farmhouse, security features disguised as agricultural necessities. No neighbors within visual range. Access road, monitored by disguised surveillance satellite communication systems, ensuring contact while preventing electronic tracking. Textbook safe house design implemented with federal resources and tactical expertise. Secure by any reasonable standard. Yet Michael found himself checking sightlines, assessing defensive positions, planning evacuation routes with obsessive attention. Not because he distrusted the FBI's security protocols, but because operational vigilance provided structure while waiting for news he couldn't control. 6 days since Elise and Reynolds had departed for the South Pacific facility. 6 days of scheduled check-ins and encrypted updates. 6 days of maintaining normalcy for the children, while tactical mind calculated probabilities and contingencies. The most recent communication had come 12 hours ago, standard operational confirmation worked into without detailed content. Evidence gathering proceeding according to timeline. Extraction scheduled for 0600 Tomorrow Island time. Almost finished. Almost safe. Almost reunited. The qualifiers haunted him with their implied uncertainty, their acknowledgement that operational parameters could change without warning, that the distance between almost and accomplished contained infinite potential for failure. Dad, Olivia's voice pulled him from tactical assessment back to immediate reality. She stood in the kitchen doorway, hair tousled from sleep, Rebecca's eyes watching him with uncomfortable perception. Is today when Elise comes back? Tomorrow, Michael corrected, manufacturing confidence he couldn't logically justify. Remember the time difference that we talked about? It's still today where she is. Olivia nodded, accepting the explanation with the faith children placed in parental certainty. Liam had another nightmare, she reported. He wouldn't tell me about it, but he was crying. Michael moved immediately toward the children's room, protective instinct overriding tactical vigilance. He found Liam sitting upright in bed, Mr. Whiskers clutched against his chest, eyes open but focused on middle distance rather than present surroundings. Hey, buddy, Michael greeted softly, settling beside him without crowding his space. Rough night. Liam nodded, small fingers working anxiously through the teddy bear's worn fur. I dreamed the bad men found us, he whispered. They took Elise away and she didn't come back. The nightmare's proximity to operational reality sent cold certainty through Michael's chest. Children's intuition, coincidence, or simple manifestation of abandonment fears the source mattered less than the impact. That's a scary dream, he acknowledged, respecting the emotion rather than dismissing it. But remember what we talked about, Elise is helping the FBI catch the rest of the bad men. She's with Agent Reynolds, who has a gun and knows how to use it. The reassurance contained tactical truth within child-appropriate framework, neither false comfort nor unnecessary detail. What if they find us while she's gone? Liam persisted, articulating the fear with precision unique to children. Then I protect you, Michael stated with absolute certainty. That's my job. Because you were a soldier, because I care about you, Michael corrected gently. Being a soldier taught me how to protect people, but caring about you is why I would do it. The distinction seemed to register Liam's posture, relaxing fractionally as he processed this framework. Elise cares about us too, he observed, statement rather than question. Yes, she does, Michael confirmed, recognizing the significance of Liam's acknowledgement. Very much. That's why she went away, Liam concluded, child's logic finding causation between caring and absence. To protect us. Exactly right, Michael affirmed, grateful for the intuitive understanding that simplified complex operational reality. And she'll come back as soon as her job was done. Liam absorbed this with solemn concentration. Promise, the request placed Michael in familiar parental dilemma, absolute certainty requested when none could logically exist. The choice between honesty and comfort, between truth and security. I promise she's doing everything possible to come back to us, he offered, finding middle ground between false guarantee and unnecessary doubt. And I promise we'll be okay no matter what happens. The qualified assurance seemed to satisfy Liam, his body relaxing against Michael's side in tacit acceptance of comfort offered. Can we make pancakes? He asked, emotional needs addressed and physical ones, asserting prominence with childhood's fluid transitions. Absolutely, Michael agreed, grateful for the practical request. Blueberry or chocolate chip? Both, Liam suggested, tentative hope, indicating emotional recovery in progress. Ambitious, Michael noted with appropriate seriousness, but doable. The morning proceeded with constructed normalcy: breakfast, preparation, informal schoolwork, outdoor exercise within the safe house perimeter. Michael maintained vigilant awareness while participating in these domestic activities. Tactical assessment never fully suspended despite engaging with the children's needs. The satellite phone's ring shattered this careful balance, unexpected communication outside scheduled parameters, triggering immediate alert status. Stay inside, Michael instructed the children tone, leaving no room for negotiation as he moved to secure communications equipment. Lock the door behind me. The secured line crackled with atmospheric interference as he activated the connection. Turner. He identified himself using operational protocol rather than personal greeting. Foxtrot 7 Alpha, came the response, Reynolds' voice using prearranged code confirming her identity and uncompromised status. Package secure but timeline accelerated. Inbound to extraction point now. Michael's tactical mind immediately processed the operational shorthand mission accomplished. Evidence secured but extraction occurring ahead of schedule, indicating potential compromise or threat detection. Status, he requested military brevity, seeking essential information. Package injured but mobile. Reynolds reported professional detachment, masking whatever emotional context surrounded this development. Secondary targets neutralized. Primary target remains active. Translation. Elise was hurt, but functional immediate threats eliminated, but the mastermind, likely the board chairman, remained at large. Timeline to secure location. Michael asked, calculating implications for their own security protocols. 12 hours, Reynolds specified. Maintain current position. Authenticate all communication. Trust no one without direct verification. The warning registered with cold clarity threat level, elevated operational security, potentially compromised, standard protocols insufficient. Understood, Michael confirmed. Safe travels. The connection terminated with abrupt finality, leaving Michael staring at silent equipment with tactical mind already calculating defensive adjustments. Reynolds' warning implied potential compromise at levels that might affect even their safe house location, unlikely, but not impossible, if high-level intelligence contacts had been corrupted. He found the children waiting behind the locked door as instructed, Olivia standing protectively before Liam, both watching his approach with wide-eyed anticipation. Is Elise okay? Olivia asked immediately, perception cutting through adult obfuscation. Yes, Michael answered, balancing honesty with age-appropriate detail. She and Agent Reynolds are on their way back now. They'll be here sooner than we expected. Relief transformed both children's expressions tension. Michael hadn't fully registered until its absence revealed its prior presence. Is she hurt? Liam asked with uncomfortable perception. Like before. The question presented another parental navigation between truth and protection. She has some injuries, Michael acknowledged, but nothing that won't heal. Nothing like before. The qualification seemed to satisfy Liam, whose experience with his mother's illness had taught him to distinguish between injuries that heal and those that don't. We should make a welcome home sign. Olivia suggested practical solution to emotional uncertainty. And maybe cookies. Excellent idea. Michael agreed, grateful for the constructive distraction. But first, we need to do some special security checks around the house, like a safety game. The reframing of tactical preparation as activity rather than cause for alarm allowed him to implement enhanced security measures without triggering the children's anxiety. Together, they checked window locks, reviewed emergency exit plans, and secured essential supplies in easily transportable backpacks, all presented as preparation for Elise's return, rather than precaution against potential threat. Throughout these activities, Michael maintained hypervigilant perimeter awareness, tactical mind calculating defensive options, while parental focus engaged with the children's needs. The dual awareness had become second nature since Rebecca's death, functioning on multiple levels, simultaneously never fully present in either, but adequate in both. Night fell with no further communication, the safe house secured beyond standard protocols, the children finally asleep after extended bedtime resistance, fueled by anticipation of Elise's return. Michael maintained watch from the living room service weapon within reach, satellite phone charged, and ready senses attuned to any disturbance in the property's nighttime rhythms. The dashboard clock read 2:17 a.m. when headlights appeared at the perimeter access road, not approaching directly, but stopping at the security checkpoint half a mile from the house. Standard protocol for authorized arrival, yet Michael's tactical instincts shifted to high alert nonetheless. The satellite phone vibrated with incoming communication. Turner, he answered, weapon ready, despite rational assessment indicating low probability of immediate threat. Authorization Sierra Tango 497, came Reynolds' voice reciting the daily security code that confirmed her identity and uncompromised status. Two friendlies approaching main entrance. ETA 3 minutes. Confirmed, Michael acknowledged relief tempered by continued operational vigilance. Perimeter secure. Welcome home. He moved to the front window, maintaining cover position, while establishing visual confirmation of approaching vehicle standard Bureau SUV with appropriate identification markers, 2 occupants visible in the front seats. All indicators suggested legitimate arrival, yet tactical training prevented full relaxation until visual confirmation of individual identities. The SUV stopped 30 yards from the house parking lights, illuminating the approach path without creating tactical vulnerability of full headlights. The driver's door opened first, Reynolds emerging with professional caution, service weapon visible but lowered eyes scanning perimeter with trained assessment. Satisfied with her security sweep, she moved to the passenger side, providing support as the second occupant emerged with careful movements indicating injury without incapacitation. Elise. Michael's breath caught at the visual confirmation of her return alive mobile present, despite operational risks that had haunted his tactical calculations for 7 endless days. Her right arm was immobilized in a medical sling, face bearing evidence of recent combat bruising, along jawline small bandage at temple, but posture remained upright, movements purposeful despite evident discomfort. He opened the door before they reached the porch, security protocols balanced against the visceral need for direct confirmation of their safety. Perimeter, Reynolds asked immediately, professional focus unchanged despite whatever operational challenges they had faced. Secure, Michael confirmed tactical assessment continuing, despite emotional undercurrents. The children are asleep, no unusual activity noted. Reynolds nodded the minimal acknowledgement, conveying professional approval of his security maintenance. I need to make contact with field headquarters, she stated, moving past him into the house with single-minded focus. Secure the entrance and join me for debriefing in 5 minutes. The brisk instructions left Michael and Elise momentarily alone on the porch, artificial lighting, casting shadows across features already altered by experience and injury. You're hurt, Michael observed, stating the obvious in absence of adequate alternatives. Dislocated shoulder, 2 broken fingers, various decorative contusions. Elise cataloged with clinical detachment, belied by the exhaustion evident beneath professional composure. Nothing permanent. The mission accomplished. She confirmed some of the tension, visibly leaving her body with the statement. We have everything we need: video documentation, research files, witness testimony. Enough to shut down the entire operation and prosecute everyone involved. The confirmation brought tangible relief. Operational success justifying the risks taken. The separation endured the injuries sustained. In your cover, Michael asked, tactical assessment continuing despite emotional undercurrents. Compromise at extraction, Elise admitted. Hence the accelerated timeline and these souvenirs. She gestured toward her injuries with grim humor. But we got out with the evidence intact, which was the primary objective. The professional assessment, prioritizing mission success above personal safety, revealed how completely she had adapted to operational mindset, corporate executive transformed into tactical asset by necessity and determination. The children will be relieved, Michael said, finding neutral ground and shared concern. They've been counting the days. Something softened in Elise's expression at mention of the children. How are they really resilient? Michael answered honestly. Missing you, worried but functioning. Liam's had nightmares, but that's to be expected, given everything he's experienced. Elise nodded, absorbing the assessment with complex emotion evident beneath controlled exterior. And you, she asked quietly, how have you been? The question caught Michael unprepared, personal rather than tactical, concerned with his well-being rather than operational status. Functional, he answered automatically, then recognized the inadequacy of the response. Worried, he amended with uncharacteristic honesty, about all of you. The admission hung between them, vulnerability offered without tactical necessity, emotional true rather than operational assessment. Before Elise could respond, Reynolds reappeared at the door, professional focus unchanged, despite whatever operational challenges they had faced. "We need to move," she stated without preamble. "Intelligence indicates our location may be compromised." The tactical alert triggered immediate response from Michael, emotional considerations instantly subordinated to security protocols. Timeline, immediate, Reynolds specified. Gather the children and essential supplies. Transport is en route to secondary extraction point. The children are asleep, Elise protested, maternal concern overriding operational acceptance. Can't this wait until morning? No, Reynolds stated with flat certainty. Our operation exposed more than we anticipated. The board chairman has connections we didn't identify, including within federal agencies. This safe house location may have been accessed through compromised channels. The implications registered with cold clarity, threat level beyond standard parameters, operational security breached at levels that rendered standard protocols insufficient. Wake the children, Michael directed Elise's tactical mind, already calculating evacuation routes and defensive positions. Essential items only. I'll secure the perimeter until transport arrives. Elise nodded, civilian hesitation replaced by acceptance of operational necessity. She moved toward the children's room with purpose, despite physical discomfort, parental responsibility, providing strength beyond medical limitations. Reynolds approached Michael with professional directness once Elise was out of earshot. "There's something you should know," she said quietly. "The board chairman, Edward Westfield, he's Elise's adoptive father." The revelation landed with tactical significance beyond its emotional impact. "She knows." "She discovered it during the operation," Reynolds confirmed. "He was directing the weapons program personally, using her company as cover for decades of illegal research. Everything she built, everything she achieved, was permitted because it served his larger agenda." The betrayal's magnitude registered as both tactical complication and personal devastation, not just corporate corruption, but familial violation, trust exploited at its most fundamental level. "How is she handling it?" Michael asked, concern transcending operational parameters. "Like someone who's had the foundation of their life destroyed," Reynolds answered with rare emotional assessment. "Functioning through sheer determination, but the psychological impact is significant." Michael nodded, understanding the delayed trauma response from both military and personal experience. "The children will help," he noted, giving her immediate purpose beyond processing betrayal. "That was my assessment as well," Reynolds agreed, "but she'll need more than distraction to navigate this long term." The observation hung an unfinished implication, clear but unspoken. "She'll need you." Before Michael could respond, sounds of movement from within the house signaled the children's waking, confused voices, shuffle of hurried preparation, Elise's calm reassurances providing structure amid disruption. "Transport ETA," Michael asked, returning to tactical considerations. 10 minutes, Reynolds specified. Black Hawk helicopter military pilot authorization codes verified through separate channels to prevent compromise. Michael nodded professional assessment, acknowledging the appropriate security protocols. "I'll get the children ready for transport." Inside, he found organized chaos. Olivia helping Liam dress, while Elise packed essential items one-handed, her injured arm limiting functionality without eliminating purpose. "Michael," she acknowledged his entrance with evident relief. "Can you help with the backpacks? I can't manage the zippers with these fingers." He moved to assist, noting the careful organization of children's necessities, clothing, medications, comfort items prioritized with parental rather than tactical assessment. Mr. Whiskers sat atop Liam's packed belongings, worn face watching proceedings with glass-eyed serenity. "Where are we going?" Olivia asked, practical concerns foremost, despite sleep-tousled appearance. "Is it another safe house?" "Yes," Michael confirmed, balancing honesty with age-appropriate detail. "An even safer one farther away from the bad people." "Because they might have found us here?" Liam asked with uncomfortable perception, small fingers clutching Mr. Whiskers with white-knuckled intensity. "As a precaution," Elise interjected before Michael could respond, maternal instinct finding balanced reassurance. "Like wearing a seatbelt even when you don't expect an accident." The analogy seemed to satisfy Liam, his posture relaxing fractionally as framework provided structure for frightening circumstances. "We made you welcome home cookies," Olivia informed Elise, priorities realigning with childhood's fluid transitions. "But we have to bring them with us now." "I can't wait to try them," Elise responded with genuine warmth despite operational pressure. "Best welcome home present ever." The simple exchange normal amid abnormal circumstances provided emotional anchor for all of them, domestic connection persisting despite tactical disruption. Reynolds appeared at the doorway, professional focus unchanged. Transport approaching. Move to extraction point now. The family four they had become that, despite legal technicalities and unusual formation, moved with coordinated purpose toward the safe house's rear exit. Michael led with tactical awareness, Elise guiding the children between them, Reynolds providing rear security with professional vigilance. Outside night air carried the distinctive thump of helicopter rotors approaching rapidly from the east. Heavy military transport rather than civilian aircraft tactical choice, appropriate to elevated threat assessment. Cool, Olivia whispered, fear temporarily displaced by childhood fascination with dramatic transportation. Like in the movies. Exactly like that. Elise agreed, maintaining calm demeanor despite operational tension. Have you ever been in a helicopter before? The casual conversation continued as they moved toward the designated landing zone, adult voices steady, despite tactical awareness providing emotional security through normalized interaction, while eyes scanned perimeter with hypervigilant assessment. The Black Hawk appeared over the tree line with minimal lighting, tactical approach, rather than standard civilian protocol. Its massive form descended toward the cleared area with precision, born of military training, rotors kicking up dust and debris as landing skids touched ground with controlled impact. Stay low, Michael instructed, guiding the group toward the aircraft with protective positioning. Move directly to the door and board quickly. The children complied with the instinctive obedience of those accustomed to emergency protocols, bodies hunched beneath rotor wash movements, purposeful despite frightening circumstances. Elise maintained protective position beside them, injured arm cradled against her body, but attention fully engaged with their safety. Reynolds reached the helicopter first, verifying identification codes with the crew chief before signaling all clear to the waiting family. Michael ushered the children forward, maintaining tactical awareness of surrounding darkness, even as focus narrowed to immediate extraction procedure. The helicopter's interior offered Spartan military accommodation bench seating, minimal comfort functional rather than welcoming. The children settled with wide-eyed fascination as Michael secured their safety harnesses, Liam clutching Mr. Whiskers with white-knuckled determination throughout the process. Everyone's secure, the crew chief confirmed through intercom system professional assessment, verifying operational readiness. All secure, Reynolds confirmed, signaling pilot for immediate departure. The helicopter lifted with military efficiency, no gradual ascent, but immediate tactical elevation, gaining altitude rapidly to minimize vulnerability during critical transition phase. Through side windows, the safe house diminished below them, lights still visible in abandoned haste perimeter, seemingly secure yet compromised by invisible intelligence failure. Where exactly are we going? Michael asked Reynolds' tactical mind, requiring operational parameters despite acceptance of necessary security protocols. Secure military installations, she specified with professional brevity. Complete isolation from civilian channels. New identities ready for implementation after debriefing concludes. The information contained both reassurance and finality safety promise through complete severance from previous lives. Security purchased with permanent disconnection from everything and everyone they had known before. Across the helicopter's interior, Elise sat with children pressed against either side. Olivia's head resting against her uninjured shoulder. Liam's small body curled protectively around Mr. Whiskers, but maintaining physical contact with her arm. Despite evident pain from her injuries, her posture communicated absolute focus on their comfort, their security, their emotional well-being amid frightening transition. The image struck Michael with unexpected force, not tactical assessment, but emotional recognition. Family formed through crisis rather than convention bonds, created through shared survival rather than shared history. Unconventional, unplanned, yet undeniably real in its imperfect authenticity. How long until we're safe? Olivia asked, practical concerns asserting through childhood resilience. Reynolds glanced at Michael's silent communication, acknowledging parental authority and responding to the children's needs. We're safe now, he assured her, balancing honesty with necessary reassurance. The helicopter is taking us somewhere no one can find us, where we can start our new life together. All of us, Liam clarified, gaze shifting between Michael and Elise with need for explicit confirmation. All of us, Elise confirmed, arm tightening around his small shoulders, despite evident discomfort the movement caused. That's what families do. They stay together no matter what. The simple statement encompassed complex reality commitment beyond legal obligation. Connection transcending circumstantial alliance future shaped by choice rather than chance. As the helicopter carried them eastward through darkness, where toward whatever new life awaited, Michael found himself watching this makeshift family with clear recognition of what they had become through crisis, not replacement for what was lost, but new creation from fragments of broken pasts. Different but equally valid, unplanned, but ultimately right. The dark landscape stretched below them, previous lives receding with each mile, future unknown, but facing it together. Not perfect, not conventional, but real in its imperfect wholeness. The helicopter banked northward, navigation lights reflecting briefly in Liam's wide eyes as he watched the world tilt outside the window. Mr. Whiskers remained clutched against his chest, worn fur, absorbing silent tears of fatigue and fear and tentative hope. The teddy bear's single glass eye caught light from the instrument panel, reflecting tiny constellations across its worn surface, witness to destruction and creation, to endings and beginnings, to the strange alchemy that transforms strangers into family through the crucible of shared survival. Tomorrow would bring debriefings and documentation, new names and new locations, the beginning of lives reconstructed from tactical necessity rather than personal choice. But tonight, in the liminal space between past and future, they existed simply as what they had become, a family forged in crisis, held together not by legal documents or shared genetics, but by something stronger, more elemental. The choice to protect what they had found, the determination never to let go, the promise that whatever came next, they would face it not as individuals, but as unit, as whole, as family, created through the most unlikely of circumstances. "Look," Olivia whispered, pointing through the helicopter's window toward the eastern horizon, where faint light had begun to seep into the darkness. "The sun's coming up." Indeed, it was new day emerging beyond the darkness that had contained their flight, their fear, their transformation from separate lives to shared future. Dawn breaking not just over landscape, but over possibility, over potential, over promise that whatever had been lost, something new had been found. Something worth protecting, something worth fighting for, something worth coming home to.